here in the Treasure Valley for over 15 years, taking your calls about the issues that matter to you. Of course, you just heard Donald Trump and Kamala Harris talking about immigration, but can you imagine you're in, well, I don't know if you want to say Boise or wherever, but all of a sudden you're at your favorite restaurant or watering hole or whatever you want to call it, and the President of the United States shows up? Donald Trump shows up? Could you believe that? And then all of a sudden he just starts signing autographs and starts doing all these things and just hangs out with you. And it's covered on international television. I don't think you're going to get that from anybody else. It was fascinating watching that on television yesterday. Joining us now to keep us informed of what's going on here in Idaho and across the nation, Congressman Russ Fulcher joins us now. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning from the wet swamp today. We've got some pretty good moisture coming down here, Kevin.
Must be a culture shock considering how we very rarely get rain here.
Well, it's not the case here. There's plenty of moisture, and it's not all coming from the ground. Sometimes it comes from the air, too.
All right, well, let's get to it. What are the big issues of the week we should be looking out for, sir? Where would you like to begin?
Well, of course, yesterday was one of the big ones. We had the continuing resolution vote with the SAVE Act in it. SAVE Act, you might recall, is the legislation that would make it so that you have to prove citizenship before you can vote in a U.S. election. And that's where the controversy is, and that vote failed last night. But it's purposely tied to the budget because the budget has to pass in order to keep the government running. And so that's the biggest single debate is, since it didn't pass, believe it or not, there's at least last night, more than half of my colleagues decided that wasn't necessarily a good idea. Then if it doesn't pass, then we have to take another run at it. And so that's the debate internally. Speaker has several different options. A number of us are talking with him. I'm personally speaking with him today. And my personal opinion is that SAVE Act needs to stay in there, and we need to continue to put out the pressure to secure our elections, and we need to leverage the budget to do it. That's the strongest piece of legislation that has to pass, that you can put something like this in. So my counsel to him is going to be to stay the course, keep that SAVE Act in there. We have to adjust the date somewhat on the extension. Then, okay, open to some discussion on that, but the SAVE Act needs to stay. At least that's going to be my approach.
What do you make of the spending in the CR? You disclosed for us that we still are at post-COVID levels. And are we ever going to get back to sanity? I know you'd like to.
I'd absolutely like to. And this doesn't go all the way back to pre-COVID, but it does adhere to a cap, a spending cap that we had agreed upon several months ago. So it is less than what the Senate had been advocating, which is a positive thing given their leadership. So it's by no means where we need to be, Kevin, but it's a step in the right direction. In order to address this debt, which is what we're trying to deal with right now, you've got to take two approaches. You have to cap your spending. My encouragement has been pre-COVID levels of spending. We're not there, but we're partway there. Cap that. The next thing is you have to turn on the economic engine for your economy and grow and get some growth going. And that's one of the things that Donald Trump was pretty darn good at. He knew how to grow an economy or the tools necessary to grow an economy. He had the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which is set to expire next year if we don't get if we don't get a renewal on that. And that was a pretty strong engine in order to get things moving again for the country. So you got to grow the economy and you got to cap your spending. And this administration is not too good at either one of those. That's why we're hoping for some changes coming up.
Well, you know what they say, sir, hope and change.
Well, some do. Maybe that was a bad choice of words.
No, we appreciate you, Congressman Fulcher. And, again, in our lifetime, we've seen the end of the Cold War. We've seen the end of the Soviet Union. We've seen people come and go. We've seen the rise of Barack Obama. And, again, you and I were just kids when Gerald Ford was president, 2 assassination attempts, and now another one against the president. And then they say, alleged assassination attempt. And what does the guy have to do? Get a shot off? Your response, sir?
Well, I've actually gotten quite a bit of national media in part over this, and it has to do with my thought process in terms of the key that this is playing in an election. Because normally, when you get this close to an election, you are debating policy. You're trying to figure out strategies to get out the vote, typical campaign-related things. And I made the statement publicly that seemed to catch some people's attention, but I do believe it. It's this biggest issue between now and November could be simply whether or not Donald Trump stays alive. Personally, I think that the situation says he will likely win this election. And I think a lot of other people see it similarly. And there's a lot of vitriol against this guy. I think a lot of it is internal. When I say internal, I mean within the swamp, within the deep state, within the bureaucratic system that is Washington, D.C. They want to keep him out at all costs. I can't prove tick and tie where these 2 assassination attempts were motivated, but what I can tell you is the level of vitriol against Donald Trump is so high that there's a lot of people that would like to see him dead. And by stating that seemed to get a lot of attention from people, but so be it. I do believe that's a true statement. And if he stays alive, I think he's got a very good chance of being elected. And I would not be shocked if he has another attempt made on his life. The other thing that I said related to this is that he may want to consider some enhancement to his security detail that's private in nature. We've not been impressed at the congressional level by how the Secret Service, the FBI, and whatnot have disclosed detail. We're supposed to be the oversight body. They are not open in how they share their investigations with Congress. If they need to have it secret, we can go into the skiff room and they can provide detail there, but they don't do that either. So I think the intelligence community has earned some mistrust with Congress. And so that was the other piece of information that I have shared with the Trump people, that might be an idea between now and the next few months to get some enhancements. There's very quality private security out there. Maybe we get some enhancement, or he gets some enhancement from those channels.
Our great friend, Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us here on KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, you worked in the private sector for a very long time. You worked in state government. Do you find it odd when you have people going, the director of the Secret Service, the day after saying, well, we're stretched thin. It's a $3 billion agency. And again, you're used to being in the bubble and the skiffs and all these things where have this wave after wave of security, and some guy just pulls off the highway, hangs out in a tree for 12 hours. And I know I'm oversimplifying this, but this is supposed to be the best security detail in the world that was created because of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And then we have the chief bureaucrat there whining that he doesn't have enough resources.
Yeah, and I think there's some legitimacy to those comments in terms of not having enough people, but there's also an argument that says, how are you distributing your resources now? And that's one of the things that they won't be open and clear on with Congress. Say, well, that's confidential information. Well, guess what? We're your oversight body. Well, we can't share it anyway. But go to a Harris or a Biden event and take a look at the level of detail versus a Trump event. You see 2 entirely different approaches and a lot more resources typically on the former. So we've got a lot of questions about that. The speaker came out here, my understanding is a couple of days ago, and made a comment that he felt that a lot of it was the availability of resources, and maybe he's right, but at the same time, I think you have to take a look at the allocation of those resources. And well, let's face it, the existing leadership just does not show the priority. They do not exhibit the priority with the with the former president, they do with the current one. And we can go back 4 years now with all the FISA issues, with all the CIA disclosures or lack thereof, and at least through congressional channels, there is a significant amount of mistrust. And I think that they are fearful that if President Trump gets reelected, that he will come in and he'll clean house and he'll roll, and their fiefdoms, if you will, are in danger of being overturned. And they don't want to see that under any circumstance. And so those are all contributing factors that I suspect. And when I say suspect, that's all I mean. I suspect could be at play here. And so that's why I think that the president should keep all of his options open. The former president should keep all of his options open when it comes to protecting his own life here for the next few months.
Our great friend, Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So let's delve a little deeper into the Israeli-Hamas war. It's a good thing you don't have pagers anymore or walkie-talkies. It appears that the Israelis are just getting back to doing what they do, which is being the best intelligence service in the world and making those people feel the pain.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that has been confirmed versus not. I've heard the main headlines on those stories. We haven't had any briefings or anything like that, so I don't have anything inside information-wise, but would not be surprised whatsoever. You alluded to the status of the Israeli Secret Service, if you will, their intelligence community, and they are very, very good. That's one of the things that has been so valuable in the relationship that we as in the United States has with Israel. We get access to a lot of their intelligence, and theirs is born strictly out of hard necessity for their survival. And so they've got to be good at it or they don't survive. And I would not be surprised at all if it turns out that they were involved with that hit, if you want to call it that. But Hamas needs to be wary. They should be. They have instigated terror across the world, primarily against the Israelis, but by the same token, that also filters down to Americans. And we know that a lot of the activity that is terrorist-based is through that channel, funded typically through Iran. And so they need to be wary, and they are not to be trusted.
Well, and then we take a look at Iran and Ukraine and Russia and China, and it all sadly just flows together, does it not?
It does. And, that's what was it, the old term axis of evil that Ronald Reagan used to use? Well, that's the axis of evil today. And they have locked arms to a large extent economically. They support one another. They supply critical components and critical trade between one another. That's one of the reasons why a lot of us have anxiety about having our critical trade dependent on any of the adversaries, especially China. And that's one of the things that we struggle with all the time. It's a top issue in my two committees, Energy and Commerce and Natural Resources, about how do we change our own laws to give ourselves the ability to access critical minerals and critical components necessary for defense, necessary for survival. Over the last few decades, we've become way too dependent on China in particular for a lot of this stuff. And they are not our friends. And people don't necessarily realize that. You take a look at the tag on your shoes, or lots of times your shirts, clothing items, retail items, it says made in China on it, and it is. We are funding that with our trade. And so this is unlike the Cold War in the Soviet Union, where we eventually outspent them into oblivion. In this case, it's a similar scenario, except for we are funding China with our trade. And that's where a lot of the policy decisions have to be made. But frankly, I think it's something all of us, myself included, need to be mindful of when we go to the store or when we order something on Amazon. Where is this stuff made? Who are we supporting? Who are we fueling with our own tax dollars and our own retail dollars? So, a very real issue.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. You talk about natural resources. Obviously, it's so very important. And, last week we were talking about going into the gold mine, and a lot of people don't know that we have coal mines in Idaho. We have a lot of people that do this incredible work, and as you like to refer to, there's Fulcher on his, four-wheeler driving in like the modern-day Indiana Jones inside this gold mine under the water and all these crazy things. We don't really profile those folks enough, so it's great that you're there and you're seeing this in action.
We have so much in our state, and that's one style of mine. There's the open mining, there's the underground mining, and then there's the deep style mining. We've got all of that in Idaho. I am going to have the opportunity of taking one of those elevator systems down several thousand feet. I don't know for sure if I'm going to do that. I got to go take a look in the mirror and say, okay, how adventurous are you feeling on that day when that day comes? But I'll let you know if we actually do it. But the point is that technology exists, and it exists right in Idaho, and we have those resources. More importantly, we have the minerals. We have the critical components necessary for all of our needs, and most of it is right here in the state of Idaho. It's just absolutely amazing, Kevin. And I just encourage your listeners to take inventory on some of the things that we have right here in our own state that they may not really even be aware of. You go north up in the Silver Valley, for example, in that Kellogg, Wallace, Mullen area, and that's some of the wealthiest minerals on the entire planet. And we've known about it for a long time. It's been resourced for a long time there. But we've also developed some of the best, most modern, safest technology, most environmentally friendly technology in harvesting that. And so Idaho is a pioneer in so many ways. And I love this state. I love what our potential is. I love what our history has been, given the innovations and those types of things. And so we've got it right here in our home state, and it's an amazing thing.
Oh, we certainly do, and we're certainly proud of you, Congressman Fulcher. Although you're involved nationally, locally, you still so much care about the state. That's why you're home all the time. So, your thoughts on the big enchilada, ranked choice voting, possibly being approved by the voters this November?
Well, I've come out in a relatively public way in conjunction with the Idaho GOP on this issue, but I believe it's a bad thing. We've seen how this plays out in other areas, and it's a complicated thing. It sounds on the surface, well, you just take the top two and you rank them 1, 2, 3, and then you have this algorithm that figures out who progresses on to the next thing, and it's all wonderful because there's an open primary and these types of things. Well, what's not stated is just how complex that is. How do you audit something like that? How do you formalize your tally? If you get more number 2s and 3s and 1s, should that count more than the number 1s, and so on and so forth? Here's the bottom line as I see it, Kevin. When you look at this thing at an objective level, this has a tendency, a very strong tendency, to favor the minority. If the Republicans, if my side, if you will, and I'm a Republican, were in the minority, I might have a whole different thought process about this, because this might be my angle to leverage my way unfairly into the majority. So that, I believe, is why most liberals want to see this happen. And frankly, there's some Republicans who say they want to see it happen too. And so I am concerned about it. But if you take an average election pool in a state like Idaho, where you've got more Republicans than you do Democrats, then it would make sense you're going to have more Republican candidates than you have Democrat candidates. So you put that multiple slate out there, and the Republicans tend to split each other's vote. And so that elevates by default the non-Republican. And so I think this is a danger. I think it's a strategy by the minority in order to get more leverage on the majority side in our state. And don't have to look very far back in Alaska's history, where Sarah Palin and Nick Begich split the Republican vote just enough so that Mary Peltola, the Democrat, is my colleague on natural resources. And Mary is a fine lady, by the way, but she takes a significantly different look on policy issues than either Sarah or Nick. Well, now Alaska, and this was just a few years ago, but now Alaska has on their ballot the removal of ranked choice voting, because they've seen how this is played out in their state, and it's not what they were told, and it's not what they want. And so I think it's a danger for Idaho. And so I'm coming out relatively public on that nature. And frankly, people are going to say, well, it's self-serving. He's worried about not getting reelected or whatever. That's really not true. I feel like I've got a good relationship with most Idahoans. You never take your election for granted, and I don't. But I feel very strongly that I've got a good base where there's a lot of personal relationships across the entire state. And so I stand by that regardless of the system. But overall, for our state, for our future, for newly elected people and people who are considering being in office, I don't think that's the most fair system that would be good for Idaho.
No, I agree with you. How do you see the election playing out? I mean, you have Harris up in the national polls. The president's still doing very well with the Electoral College, despite the media and everything else. How do you see it, again, not only as an analyst, but someone who is in the arena? How do you see it playing out?
Well, as you might imagine, at least on the House side, we track that reasonably close. And a significant amount of my time, of course, is trying to make sure that I take care of my own backyard first, and we're working on that. I also take some time and I try to help some colleagues that are in close races that really need a little bit of help. And so we track those polls on a significant basis, and I think there's some good information that comes as a result of that. Here within the last few days, we've got some what I think is good objective polling across the country that says, at least on the House side, we've got a very good chance to net somewhere between 4 and 6 seats. And now that may not sound like a lot, but given the fact that you basically are at about a 2-vote majority now, that's a big deal. And I think those look very, very solid in the sense that I think you could substantiate those figures. So that's kind of where I think we are on a national level, is a slight growth in the Republican majority on the House side. I don't track the Senate as closely, but I'm told that they feel similarly confident with a 2 to 3 margin, 2 to 3 vote margin on the Senate side. And different dynamic over there, but because of the cycles, the 6-year rotating terms and so on. But this one appears to be a good one for the conservative side of the elections over there. And as I go back to my previous comment on the presidency, I believe that former President Trump is likely to win if he's alive. And it sounds strange, but I truly think that that's going to be a major factor here. There's 7 states who tend to have the biggest say because they swing one way or the other on these things. And I think that if you take a look at them and the amount of effort going into the elections and also the under ticket in those 7 states, I think it does favor the conservative Republican side. And so I'm optimistic. I really am. And it helps with your attitude going about your day-to-day work if you can be optimistic. But I think I am for the right reasons this time. And I'm looking forward to November.
Well, you're always right for the right reasons, sir. That's why we have you on.
Right back at you. Thank you for what you do and for providing a forum where people can have conversations like this. It's rare and it's very, very valuable.
Congressman Fulcher, we so appreciate you. Please be very careful, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, our great friend, Congressman Fulcher. More coming up next. Quick break, very quick break. Kevin Miller, Talk Radio.
Good to talk to you, Kevin. See, I don't have anything profound, but I think it's very unfortunate that Kamala Kami has got as far as she is, and there's still assassination attempts on Trump. I think he'll go down in history as one of the most devoured human beings on the planet Earth. He hasn't had a minute's rest in the last 12 years, so I do not put it past the evildoers to try and take him out. I don't understand at my age how Kamala got as far as she did, but it is what it is. Thank you for your continued service to the Treasure Valley.
Well, thank you for supporting us. Without you, there'd be no me, and I'd just be hanging out talking to Matt at the Star McDonald's every morning.
How are things at the Merc? Have you been there recently?
Well, they appear to still be in business.
I was there and saw Jackson's and everything else that's going up at Star. It's just like they're resilient.
Star has really sold out, and we're talking about the community that I live in, home of former Governor Butch Otter, Lori Otter, all the big stars, Rusty Smurs, Charles from Portico Pharmacy, all the big stars live in Star. And, it's very odd how people put things. You have a Jackson's and then you have a Maverick. And for years, there was just one gas station, the Star Merc. And now you've got one across the street from each other, just down a block or two down the road from another. And then you have, 2 auto parts stores. And I'm going, that's a lot for this town of, 20,000, if that?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't know. The worst thing for me about Star is there's no downtown. There's no center hub. It's just a wide spot in the road. It was city planners years ago, but...
Well, we got rid of the mobile homes, and who knows what else they're going to put in there. R&R, I got to run, but thank you.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you, little buddy. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They bring you Fox News coming up next. First, let's get you to work safely and on time. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studio, traffic down the freeway, we're looking good as you're coming out of Canyon County into Ada County. Don't forget Karcher and Franklin. That construction project continues there. The orange barrels are out. Great cars, great service. Ask around. Your friends and family will tell you Fairly Reliable Bob's is the place to get your next car, truck, or van. Fairly Reliable Bob's at 23rd and Main in downtown Boise. That's your traffic. Now, I'm Dave Burnett on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. Can you hear me okay? My connection's a little fuzzy.
I can hear you.
All right. I got a mailer yesterday from the folks that are pushing Prop 1. They call it their open primary proposition, which includes ranked choice voting. And I know you saw it because you liked my post on Twitter, or X as it is, showing that mailer. And in that mailer, it talks about open primaries on both sides. It has no mention at all of ranked choice voting. Now, previously, the Attorney General has gone after this group for deceptive practices when they gathered their signatures, and they're continuing to lie to the voters in their propaganda trying to get this thing passed. And it really is telling to me that they don't want to mention the ranked choice voting portion in their mailer. All they're talking about is open primaries. And if ranked choice voting was such a good idea, why don't they mention it in their mailer? And, we need to talk to our friends. We need to talk to people we know about this ballot measure coming up, because if we don't, if people just get the mailer that says, open primaries, what's wrong with that? And they don't understand the ranked choice voting part of it, as Congressman Fulcher was talking about earlier today, there's a chance Idaho could flip to blue if we're not careful. And so we need to do everything that we can to make sure that this doesn't go through.
Well, you bring up a very good point, and we're going to see how that plays out here with the Republican Party. It really comes down to the Republican Party. The Republican Party.
If you get that mailer.
Let me just finish, if I could, just for 2 seconds. You have a lot of Republicans saying, look, the Republican Party is too mean. We're going to take our ball and go home, and all sorts of craziness. And these are the establishment people. I don't know. I mean, unless you just want to blow things up, why in the world anybody with a brain would want ranked choice voting in Idaho?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you look at what happened in Alaska, and again, Congressman Fulcher mentioned that, where you had several Republican candidates, one Democrat candidate, and the way the voting came out with it is the Democrat won.
Yeah, but some people don't like conservative Republicans. Some people want us just to be a very pro-business state and drive on. And so it's good for business to elect the libs. Look at the mayor of Boise. I mean, she's not as pro-business as her predecessor, but she has survived, and now people, think she's the belle of the ball, despite doing a horrible job. And I'll say this, I'm the only one on radio that calls her out. Everybody else wants to be their buddy. You want a buddy, go to the bar. You want issues.
Do we want to make Boise and Idaho into Boise? The city council the other day passed a resolution asking the state to implement gun control. They call it gun safety, but we all know what it is. Do we want to go down that road? Do we want to make Idaho like California, enacting all sorts of gun regulations that aren't going to make a difference?
I would agree with you. And then you have the infighting between the Republicans, and Boise runs wild and free.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because we have people like Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, that are saying they're becoming Democrats, but it's because they've left people behind. The party has evolved, and they're the establishment. And that's why Trump has my vote, is because he's not an insider. He's anti-establishment. If you look at what's been going on, and I'm going to get in the rant again, you look at what's happening with spending. Nobody is cutting spending. Both sides are spending us into oblivion. They're running up the national debt. And if we just vote more of the same, we're going to get more of the same. We have to enact change, and that's where we have the MAGA movement. That's why we have Trump, is people are tired of the same old, and want to do something different. We don't want the Liz Cheneys anymore. We don't want Mitt Romney. We want somebody that's going to stand up and fight for us.
Glenn, great call. Thank you for tagging me on Twitter with that one.
Yep, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for giving us a platform that we can bring things out and help people become aware of what's going on.
Well, we live to serve. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Our great friend Glenn in Napa. Sean Hannity today at 1 on KIDO Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio. Your morning cup of Sean. This is the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
The underpinning of her campaign, and she repeats it, is Trump will be a dictator on day one. That comment he made to me in an interview when I said, well, they say you're going to be a dictator on day one. He goes, yeah, you're going to be a dictator. He goes, well, only for one day. And then he goes, just to get the border secure and to get us back to energy independence. And they just like the Charlottesville hoax that they lie about, just like Project 2025 that they lie about, just like abortion that they lie about, just like Trump is going to tax Social Security and Medicare that they lie about. I mean, this is a nonstop lying campaign. And of course, Harris is not held accountable for her statements and her own words ever by anybody who would destroy America's economy.
The conservative underground meets later today on the Sean Hannity Show.
All right, remember the old way of shopping for custom window treatments, waiting around all day just to get an overpriced quote from a commission pushy salesperson? Well, those days are over because Blinds.com invented the better way to shop for custom window treatments. Now, with completely virtual consultations, you're never going to have to deal with a salesperson in your home ever again. And whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or you prefer to use professional installation services, you can count on Blinds.com to deliver top-quality window treatments. And that means premium woven wood to motorized shades. They're my favorite, and much more. You get unlimited custom window treatments installed, all for one low cost. And at Blinds.com, there are never any hidden fees, no showroom markups. The price you see on the website is the price you pay. And with Blinds.com, they have the 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you're not happy with the style, the color, the fit, they're going to work it out for you. Shop at Blinds.com right now. Get up to 40% off. Save up to 40% at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Thank you very much, Sean Hannity. Kevin Mill in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Appreciate you being along for the ride. Of course, the big story yesterday, the Fed cutting the interest rate by not a quarter of a point, but a half a point. It will be something that we'll be tuned into, we'll be watching to see whether or not this helps the economy. Of course, it is nice when you're a Democrat. It is nice when you're a Democrat in office. And all of a sudden, the economy is tanking. Rightfully, you're blamed for it. And the Fed cuts the rate. It's good to be a lib. It's good to be a lib on that one. Other stories locally, as we've covered on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com. The West Ada School District reports social media threats not credible, which is good news. And we hope and we pray that we have great leaders, not only within the West Ada School District, but within all school districts and all religious institutions, and really all institutions to keep people safe. We do live in crazy, challenging times. And as Glenn said, there was a resolution passed by the Boise City Council urging something to do with responsible gun ownership, code for let's take the guns. And really, if you're a person that is an elected official in Boise, people like myself make you uncomfortable. I would assume that you most likely don't leave Boise. You have a Boise bias, and everything in Boise is great and wonderful. Of course, if you're a God-fearing conservative, if you're someone who loves America, you usually live in the hinterlands. You live in Meridian or Nampa or Homedale or Fruitland or Payette or the good places. And it's such a contrasting culture where we have the ne'er-do-wells of the Boise City Council, the ne'er-do-wells of the liberal, that would like to be more like Pete Buttigieg. The fact that we have charging stations, $3 million worth. Do we have $3 million worth of electric vehicles? And then we had the garbage man, I think in Boise as well as Cuna, where it's going to be electronic garbage vehicles. Now, that's great if we have a vast and powerful and updated grid. But as many of you know, last August, when there wasn't any severe weather, well, we had to shut off the power because of the fires. And you're thinking to yourself, my goodness gracious, do I have to go to 4patriots.com and buy a generator just so I can listen to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio? My goodness gracious, I left the state of California, not me, but others, because of the rolling blackouts. Now, here we are in the most modern era, the most modern country, and yet in Boise, Idaho, it became commonplace last month to turn off the power. Hey, everybody, we're going to turn you off. So you're telling me that in this age of the iPhone 16, in this age of we're having robots drive cars, we can't modernize the power grid. So because there's a fire, unfortunately in Idaho City, we're going to cut off people on the bench. Remain calm, all is well. Is that what it seems like to you?
Remain calm. All is well. All is well.
I mean, I'd really like to see the Boise City Council really work on non-polarizing, non-partisan issues like greater infrastructure. And of course, their idea of greater infrastructure, Lee Joe knows all about this and others, was when they redid the building code. So now you can have a nursery school in your house and you can build up. Now, again, I'm not a native Idahoan. I've barely been here. But I'll give you that disclaimer. And just as somebody who was really one of the last members of the Traveling Wilburys, although not officially, but I am, but I'm not, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you take a look at the city of Eagle. And the city of Eagle, you've got Old State Saloon that is making a name for itself. You have, Cosmetica Pharmacy, some great local businesses in the city of Eagle. And then you have this big 4-story building. Maybe it's 3-story, it's going to be 4-story, and you're thinking, what doesn't belong here? Oh, by the way, thank you, Sweet William. You have the gold reserve in Eagle as well. A lot of gold there. Larger than Fort Knox, they say. And yet, when you build up, you lose that quaintness. And of course, as we're seeing in Boise, you're now seeing in Eagle, where we have this ridiculous traffic. What I'd like to see from our local officials is I would really, really, truly love to see people solve the traffic problems. Wouldn't that be great? My man, the working man, the real man, Lee Joe, joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Lee Joe.
Hello, sir. Yeah, I got to drop an early call on you because I'm going to be running like a madman again. I'm actually going to start stepping out on start my own company.
Really? Good.
Hopefully that's not it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I wish you well.
Yeah, it'll be my third time, but the first two, the first one was followed immediately by 9/11. The second was almost immediately followed by the Great Recession. And so let's talk about what happens if Donald Trump gets assassinated. What is the procedure? What is America going to do? Because it's pretty obvious, as I've said before, that in all levels of government, there is complete ineptness and inability to do their job efficiently. And the Secret Service is no different than all your other government agencies. So what happens if, or in the likelihood that Donald Trump is assassinated? Any thoughts? My thought is that we have whatever it is, that whatever's been brewing begins. People do understand that there's no constitutional republic here. There's going to be some ploy to take power, martial law perhaps, or something like that. And you were talking about the power outage, that probably was caused by a squirrel on the bench in Boise, because squirrel power outages are pretty normal. But we have this whole conflict, and the government is not going to do anything about it. They're not going to save you, and this is all going. If it's going to do what I think it's going to do, we begin chaos. The final end of the United States begins, and the Constitution has to be reestablished by patriots. And I think that we have this, this naivete that the deep state won't succeed. And they succeed regularly with just about everything they do. Just a few thoughts there.
Yeah, you're just full of hope and happiness this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't.
And I'm a little worried every time you seem to start a business, we have an economic whammy, so a whopper.
Exactly. So, I mean,
I don't know about your timing, brother.
That's one of my main fears. That is what happens. I know the world doesn't revolve around me, but Kamala as president, or Kamala or Biden or whatever, somebody establishing martial law, and then we never come back out of martial law. It's it's on the horizon as soon as Lee Joe starts a business.
Lee Joe, good luck with that. Thank you very much. And remember,
go enjoy your beer and ride your ATV and watch sports. We'll run the country.
Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin, from the Idaho Pizza Company studio. Traffic now on the freeway. No major issues to get in the way right now. Do be aware of the fact 10 Mile Road just north of Cherry Lane is affected. There was a water main break there. Northbound lanes are affected. Orange barrels are up as they do some repairs there. Vibrant Med Spa in Meridian is turning 1 today. Celebrate with free B12 shots and free underarm laser hair removal, plus huge giveaways. Celebrate with Vibrant Med Spa in Meridian today.
Talk show host, brand ambassador, branding specialist, and the guru of all things spoken word. Good morning, sir.
Hey, how are you doing, Kevin?
Oh, it's great to have you with us, and just your warm, friendly voice brings back so many memories of our time together in Huntsville, and so many adventures on the trail, sir.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, we are now living in the precipice of becoming a totalitarian state.
Well, I'm sorry. Hold on. There was a little dead air there, and I jumped in. I apologize. Please go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, we live in the precipice of living in a totalitarian state. We now have Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton parroting the same line that misinformation, quote unquote, should be found illegal, and hate speech, quote unquote, should be found illegal. Well, here's what they have not defined. Another person's misinformation is one person's opinion. Making someone's opinions illegal is probably one of the most dangerous things I have heard from a politician. Now, I may disagree with someone. I may disagree with you, Kevin. I may disagree with Kamala Harris. I may disagree with a wide variety of people. But their opinions, while they may be wrong to me, are not, quote unquote, misinformation. They shouldn't be going to jail for it. They shouldn't be going to trial over opinions in which I may disagree.
And yet here we are. You as a patriot, you as someone who has dedicated his life to talk radio, to the spoken word, to being polarizing, to having an opinion, your thoughts on the future of the format and, of course, political thought.
Well, my opinion is they want to go out, and Tim Walz has said this. Kamala Harris obviously agrees. This is part of their official talking points. Is that they want to make a speech that disagrees with them illegal, and what that will do is that will end talk radio. It will close down, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of websites. California has just made it illegal for a political mean. Okay, humor should never, ever, ever be illegal. It is beyond the scale of common sense, beyond scale of just a liberty that we are now at this place.
And yet here we are. What led us to this? Was it Obama? Was it too much Donald Trump? Why are we here?
COVID. The COVID lockdowns, began this. It's for the Democrats, their big moment to protect democracy was January 6th, which was mainly a bunch of husky 50 and 60-year-olds traipsing through the Capitol. It was not, quote unquote, an insurrection. But we've had those two things happen. And we got to a point during the COVID crisis where all of a sudden you came up with an opinion that was unpopular. You were being actively censored by Facebook, by Twitter at the time, Instagram. And I think there were people that looked at that and said, wow, we can censor opinions we don't like. Fantastic. And that's where we're at.
Our great friend Peter Thiele joining us, talk show host, an incredible mind for all things branding, the spoken word. A gentleman that gave me my first job in talk radio years ago. And obviously, I value his opinion. You have a lot of deep ties to the state of Minnesota, which, again, in my youth and when you were a young Peter Thiele and I was a young Kevin Miller, I didn't understand. But we would love to get your insight into Minnesota and Tim Walz, sir.
Well, Minnesota has gone through a lot of changes. It was not that long ago where it was always a purplish state. Now it's moved into the blue state arena. Tim Walz rose up and won in, quote unquote, a more conservative district. He beat a guy named Gil Gutnick, who was a friend of mine. I love Gil. He's one of the nicest people in the world. And so he knocked off Gil Gutnick. Now that we know everything Tim Walz said he was running on was a total lie, which is insane. He became governor by not paying attention to the rural roots, which is the quote-unquote sales point of why he was picked by Kamala Harris, but by becoming a liberal, big city, suburban sort of, progressive. And it's obvious that I have a buddy of mine. She's a writer who has written for Slate, the New York Times, the Washington Post, an active Bernie Sanders supporter. Active. And now she has basically said, well, freedom of speech is here. I'm voting for Trump.
Well, that's amazing.
And because anyone who works in journalism, whenever you hear a journalist say that some speech has to be stopped, that person is not a journalist. They're an advocate for a point of view, and usually it's on the left-hand side. Remember, when Nicolas Maduro ran for re-election in Venezuela, he ran and his campaign was about democracy. I'm here to protect democracy. If you ask the people in North Korea, and they do have an election, it's about democracy. When you hear people saying that they're there to protect democracy, it's never about freedom of thought and democracy and debate and all that. It's about support my position and my position alone.
Let's move on to Donald Trump. You've studied him for years. How do you see him playing out? And give us your review again. You write for Barrett Media. You're a brilliant strategist. You've coached a lot of people with a lot of egos, and you do it in such a brilliant way. If you were coaching Donald Trump based on what happened last week, what would you say to him?
Donald Trump has a weakness. And the only people who can speak to him properly are his children. Donald Trump his Achilles heel is flattery. And he appears to put people around him sometimes that flatter him. And it's a great weakness. It's a great weakness. Now, if I was with him, I would say let's pay attention to the big issues. The economy, it's unvetted migration, and I would also focus him on crime. Those three issues alone. Now, I am not at the center of the polling. And the one thing about political parties, they poll heavier than anyone else, and their polls are probably more accurate, and we never get to see them. The only way I've gotten to see them as a member of the media is because I have connections who will give me information from these polls. It's usually doggone accurate. Now, Kevin, it all comes down to when you elect a president of the United States. I don't care if it was 10 years ago, 50 years ago, in the last half century, it's about two demographics. Two demographics alone is how we pick a president. It is the turnout of the black community. The black community generally has a little higher for the Obama elections, about 90% turnout. Not 90% turnout, 90% of black votes vote for Democrats. It's all based on turnout. John Kerry and Al Gore got the same percentage of black votes, but they didn't get great black turnout. He was not considered a great guy. The second are white Catholics. White Catholics are about 100 million Americans. It's about 1 out of 3. And if you go back election after election, why did Joe Biden win? Oh, he's a white Catholic. Donald Trump, he won the white Catholic vote over Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama, the one anomaly, in 2012, he barely lost the white Catholic vote. But the turnout for black Americans put him over well over it. And just go back, and it's very, very predictable. So what I don't know, and none of us really know this because it has to be a real mechanic into the demographics, into those communities of those swing states. It's how they're reaching those demographics. And Donald Trump, as of recent polling I've seen, there may be updated numbers, was getting about 15% of the black vote. If that ends up holding up, even if there is a good turnout among black Americans, that's going to be huge for his victory.
Our great friend Peter Thiele joining us, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Peter, what do you make of the vice president? She has everything going for her, a ton of money, the media, and yet it appears to be deadlocked, although in Iowa and other states, the media says she's closing the gap.
Yeah, I think that the more she speaks in public, the better it is. The Democrats learned something with Joe Biden. They created a candidate who didn't campaign. You never heard from Joe Biden. He was not out in public, didn't do a lot of appearances, did that, and they're doing the same thing with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, in fact, if you look at the X feed of the presidential campaigns, which I do because I'm addicted to this. Kamala, her appearances and her are very canned, where Tim Walz and, ironically, Kamala's husband, Doug Emhoff, are freely speaking, interacting with people. And with Kamala, they don't do that because she's terrible at it. And what also is interesting, as much as we're talking about the idea of having a woman president, and I have no problem with that. I'm all in. I love women.
Hold on. Thank you for that disclaimer, sir. Yes. Yeah.
I love them a lot. Is that you keep hearing from feminists, let her speak. Let her speak. And when it's all said and done, we don't hear Kamala speak very often. And when we do, it's with a teleprompter in front of her. And very rarely are we getting a glimpse of her shaking people's hands and having real conversations. They're hiding her.
Well, you take a look at maybe a marginal quarterback or a marginal running back, but they have a great offensive line. That's a tough one. Now, in the age that you and I grew up in, sir, we had to read books. I mean, I'm sure you read Buckley's books and the National Review, and I can remember you lecturing me on being more prepared back in the day. But today it's TikTok and the videos. The critical thinking isn't there, so I assume they're just counting on the cult of personality to get her through. Will that be enough?
It could be. Again, the Democrats seem to be addicted on the youth vote. A lot of college appearances and stuff like that. It's the youth vote is kind of like the Hispanic vote. they go out trying to get it. They don't get it all, and the turnout's not very good. With the Hispanic vote, by the way, Democrats and Republicans have been going forever, trying to convert the Hispanic vote. And the deal is that Latinos, in fact, Democrats and leftists have come up with the term Latinx or Latinx or whatever it is. If you're a Mexican American, you have your own unique culture. If you're Puerto Rican, you have your own unique culture. It's very, very different. The only thing you share is that most of them are Roman Catholic, and the other thing is that you share a language, and some food items, but basically those cultures are very, very different. It's like going to Europe and crossing from Belgium into France. Well, they both speak French, but the Belgian, culture is very different than the French culture.
Peter Thiele joining us, Kevin Mill in the Morning, KIDO Talk Radio. You mind if I ask you a few questions about talk radio?
Yeah, go ahead.
How long have you been in talk radio, sir?
37 years.
37 years. So we look at the last changes, let's say in the last 15 to 20 with these online platforms and the podcasting and the streaming, so much more competition. Where do you see the future of the format?
I think the future of the format I think we actually need to have a redesign. Rush Limbaugh, 30-some years ago, redesigned the format. And a lot of hosts have gone into this and still continue to do these very long monologues. It's a lot of information, a lot of sometimes serious stuff. I think that talk radio has to adapt. And I don't know if I necessarily have all the answers, Kevin. I just know what the problems are. I think that, and it's also, when you host a show like you do every day here, Kevin Miller, you are performing art. It's an art to do what you do. It is, it's a feel, it's a stuff, and like any art form, there are musicians that put out album after album that sound just the same. Then there are musicians that put out albums that adapt to the times and move to it. I think that's Taylor Swift's greatest gift, is that she has adapted and has the sound of the moment. And I think that's what talk radio's problem is. We don't have the sound of the moment, and for future innovation, we have to find ourselves as an essential component to people's lives, and we have to sound like the culture that is today, and that's our problem.
Yeah. What do you make of the Pat McAfee effect?
Oh, people should look at him and as a template. We're talking about a guy, and by the way, he drives me nuts personally. But I get it.
Right. Yeah.
I get it. He has found a new way to connect with an audience that is essentially very, very loyal to him. And when you have that ability to connect with people, that is such a rarity. Think about that, Kevin. That guy has figured out a way. If you read books on branding, they talk about the halo effect. And the halo effect is this, is that if you eat Lucky Charms for breakfast every day, that's your deal. And someone said, pick up the Captain Crunch. It's much better. And with Lucky Charms, and they now feature marshmallows too. And you're, oh, but you know what? I love me some marshmallows. He has built a brand that people are exceptionally loyal to and connect with, and that is, it's absolutely incredible. In fact, I think a lot of the future talk show hosts will come from a podcast type space and be able to go out and grab and, bring in an audience with them.
Peter Thiele joining us. What else should we be looking out for? And then before that, I have to, whenever I think of you, I think of Steve Winder. And I think of the Lieutenant Governor of Alabama who was in the Senate, and there were allegations that he had an affair. and that the Democrats wanted to get him to leave the floor, which would then they would take control, and he had to take a wee in a little bucket. And I can remember again waffling, and you go, you ask him, Kevin, you're not leaving the building until you ask him on the air if he had sex with that hooker.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, you have to be able, it's funny is that I was working in a situation where there was a new elected official who was giving a speech, and it was the early days of social media, and I was recording it on my camera equipment to throw it up on the Facebook page of the radio station I was at the time. And the promotions director told the representative for the newly elected statewide official that before we posted that, we would send them a copy of the speech for their approval.
Ooh.
And you know how I handled that.
Yeah.
I said, absolutely no way. Absolutely no way. I said, we are not in the business of protecting a politician, even if I agree with them, if they screw up. I said, we owe our audience to be 100% honest and 100% real. And there's some wonderful people I disagree with on policy and on things. There's some bad people I really agree with a lot. And if one of those bad people I agree with on nearly everything does something and says something terrible, it is my job as a member of the media to expose that and to bring that up ASAP.
And you do it so well. What else should we be looking out for, and how can people get a hold of you, sir?
Oh, you can always find me on the X at Peter Thiele. At Peter Thiele, PeterThiele. So we should be looking for the next couple of weeks. Obviously, I think that the campaigns will begin to really focus in on their message. And I will say this: you're in Idaho. Idaho is going to be a state that's going to be voting for Donald Trump. And that's great and that's wonderful. But you can, and people can volunteer if they want to, for Donald Trump or the candidate of their choice, and help that candidate in Pennsylvania, help that candidate in Georgia, help that candidate in other swing states, Nevada, Arizona, etc. So don't think that, hey, we've got this one, and I don't need to do anything. No. You can do phone banks. They can hook you up through your computer and just do a phone bank to help your candidate in all the swing states and get it done.
Peter Thiele, we so appreciate you. We'd love to have you back every week if that works for you, sir.
Anytime. It works fine. We can do this weekly. That'd be great, Kevin.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend Peter Thiele. We'll get your reaction next. Kevin Miller.
KIDO Talk Radio.
Tune into live TV. Nearly half of the respondents in a recent poll said 48% they watched television last month, while 30% tuned in only for a specific item. And you're going to think, well, what are people tuning into? Well, no doubt if you love sports and you're a big Boise State football fan, sports was the most common. 76% of the reasons readers said they tune in on live TV, followed by news, 46%, debates, 34%, and a TV series, 22%. Now, are you watching on satellite or cable? Maybe it's all in the same, or maybe streaming. Cable seems to be where many still draw the line. 65% no longer pay for it, while 21% do so begrudgingly. Only 14% said, of course. Our viewing habits continue to change. And, of course, so do our listening habits. If you want to watch this or listen to this show on demand, you can get it on YouTube. You can get it on any podcast. Simply type in Kevin Miller Show on Apple, Google, Schmoogle, Boogle, Spotify. You'll get this program. And how do you know? Because there are so many Kevin Millers. Well, you'll see my, at one time, receding hairline, pasty face, and when I was wearing a suit. Of course, on YouTube, you get that big image of me, and who wouldn't want to just go to your favorite laptop or tablet or phone and just get that smiling image of me right there on YouTube? Anyway, That is sarcastic. We don't believe our own hype. We live to serve, and those are the places you can get this program on demand. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Russell in Star. Good morning, Russell.
Good morning, Kevin. Kevin, I wanted to ask you a question about commercial broadcasting, which is your career, and I want to do everything to protect your career, okay? But as an individual Christian, I understand that there are certain subjects that we cannot broach the subject. We cannot speak about them. I have two in particular. The last guest you had, his pragmatic speech was fantastic to me. And, for him to say we're under totalitarianism, well, I concluded that back in 2020. And, but it wasn't spoken then. It seems people take a long time to catch up to the truth of reality in the light of God. They just don't see the truth as it's going on. And if you speak that truth, it's disallowed. Now, Kevin, a question. What is disallowed by the FCC in your career? I mean, do they tell you that certain subjects and certain utterances are not permitted?
The only really interaction I've had with that would be when people swear. And I'm always very hyper-vigilant, never to allow people or to say something that would smear somebody or that would besmirch someone. And especially here in Idaho, because we live in such a small town, you run into people, and you always want to be able to have. You may disagree with people, and a lot of people think that I go too far with Mayor McLean, but you want to have relationships with people, whether you agree with them or not.
Yeah, but in the free speech censorship world of totalitarianism that we're living under right now, and we're all challenged with that, Kevin. I mean, we know that certain beliefs and worldviews that we have are disallowed. Now, we understand as Christians, it says in the book of Ephesians, we're disallowed of men, but precious and chosen in the sight of God. But, Kevin, free speech is the issue of the day. And Kamala Harris, electing them, it's the end of free speech in America. Commercial broadcasting back in I bought some books. You say you read books. I bought books on broadcasting. Back, I think 1922 or 23, the Congress was debating whether to make the radio, which everyone was listening to, all the families were around it, and commercial or free speech without any restraints or control of the government. So, I do sense, Kevin, that there are definite subjects that if an individual uttered them, he's finished. He's finished in the community. He's finished, right?
Yeah. No. Right? Well, but today, let's take an instance where we had Laura Loomer, who is close to Donald Trump, went on Twitter and said something about the vice president. 10 years ago in radio, talk radio, wherever, you would have said that, and people would have thought, wow, that's a hot take, but they wouldn't have called you a racist. They wouldn't have denounced it. They wouldn't have done everything else. So it's not so much government, but it's more like business and everyone else. They don't want polarizing. They don't want controversial. They don't want any of that stuff anymore. That's really how it plays out. And everybody's a sissy. Nobody wants to have a hot take anymore. Even in sports radio, they don't criticize the team. They go, well, they were good, boys.
So Kevin, if I call in the future Russell from Star and speak of subjects that are just not allowed, and by the business community, by the general public, I mean, I'm the one who's sacrificing myself by talking about those subjects. So, isn't that the manhood we're looking for?
To a degree, but I have people say, look, we love you, but we don't like the callers on this show. And to me, the callers represent the community. And this is I would say, except when I did launch this show almost 30 years ago, this is about the least opinionated that I've been. I just like to have a forum and where we can have a discussion and people can agree to disagree. And some people don't like that. Some people, look, if I were smart, I would, kiss up to Mayor McLean and we'd have the interview show and, well, okay, thank you for raising taxes and, thank you, Micron and everything else. Look, if I had any ounce of career longevity or common sense, that I would be kissing up to all the corporate people and having them on, and I joined the club, but I haven't. I was raised in talk radio, and that guy there hired me. That guy there that we had on fired me, but I consider him still one of the most brilliant minds ever. You have to, as he said, and he showed in his example, you have to hold people accountable. Today, people don't really stand by you. So if you see me in Albertsons and I'm facing the Barefoot Wines, you'll know what happened.
Okay. Well, Kevin, look, I love the callers and the people that speak the most controversial things I like the best. So anyways, thanks for taking my call today, Kevin.
Russell, God bless you. Thank you for listening. All right, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Here we are is the post-millennial, the gateway pundit, the czar of Eagle, Idaho, Mark, the watchdog of Eagle, with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Well, Russell brought up a good topic. And we're going to throw out their Meta, Facebook, all the other ones that contrived and did things during the 2020 election are continuing to do so for this election. We're going to look at Chris Ruddy with Newsmax and what happened to him and how he was threatened by the deep state if he continued talking about the fraud of the 2020 elections. Now, I just want to take and throw my radio at the wall every time I hear this, like this morning on Fox News on the hour, that chameleon Kamala Harris, all of a sudden she's 2 points ahead of Trump in, national polls. And that the Hispanics and independents, where are we getting these polls from? I mean, Fox News has gone along with playing the same Pied Piper song as the other alphabet networks out there that lie and give us nothing but fake news. We know the whole media complex is controlled by the intergovernment, by the deep state. So, but I mean, it's just disgusting. I hear this from Fox News. And you know what? How come for months and months, and it's not just seeing Gateway Pundit, Breitbart, Revolver, Michael Savage, WorldNet Daily. I could give you a list of conservative, websites that said the same thing about how Hispanics and the black community are tired of all the illegals being dumped in their backyard and how it's depressing their cities further, their inner cities. And yet we're supposed to believe that they're going to jump on the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz bandwagon. I mean, this is propaganda at its finest. This is propaganda at its finest. And again, this is a big psyops operation by our deep state government to try to convince you and sell you on this witch, Kamala Harris, and the communist Tim Walz. Again, you know what I'm going to tell you right now, Kevin? I know what's going to happen. You probably won't be hearing much from me and other callers after this election is over, because I think we see the way we're being led and told that it's going to go. I hate to say it, but there's not going to be much worth me to call in for anymore, because we're already monitored. I've said this years ago. They got me on their little blacklist from years back, calling the Michael Savage, other national talk radio hosts in the past. And I know what's coming. I see what's coming. And again, I keep bringing up something that when you think about it, you really need to do a show on Revelations and what it talks about, that we're all going to go, the world is going to go through a hell for about 3.5 years of living under tyrannical dictatorship. And that includes the United States of America, because this is what our deep state government is leading us into. And we're basically being led over the cliff into the abyss. And we are. Do you see any way out of this? No, I don't. because you can see how many agencies in the complex, the media complex, and how they've all been taken over. And I listened to your guy from Pennsylvania and what he said. This has been going on more than what happened in 2020 and what happened with COVID and all that. This has been going on for decades. This was something that was planted like a cancer decades ago in the United States of America. It's what Khrushchev said way back, that they'd use the Constitution as a rope in which to hang us by, and we are seeing it now. That's pretty much all I got to say, sir.
All right, Mark, thank you. If you're going to give up, then give up. I love Mark. Nice guy. But if you're going to peace out and take a we on all of us, do it on your own. Call into the post-millennial. Call into Michael Savage. Call into all the haters. Let me tell you a guy I admire is Tea Party Bob. That guy every day is hitting the heavy bag. That guy every day is doing the judo chops. That guy every day cares. And you can't sit there and you can peace out. And then when they take over, you're going to go, well, I should have done something. And I'm not going to say anything personal about Mark. I love Mark. I love his passion. Look, as I've said, if you want to do this,
go enjoy your beer and ride your ATV and watch sports. We'll run the country.
Then do that. And look, nothing is guaranteed. Our great friend, Larry Gebert. It's funny, and maybe it's because we're all antiquated, but I honor people that served. And every day when I wake up in my house, I look at two pictures. No, they're not of me. I don't have that type of grave sense of humor. I look at a picture of a caricature of Larry Gebert water skiing, the beloved Channel 7 meteorologist that was truly the example of what it was like to be a community broadcaster. And I look at the picture that he gave me. I happened to be over at Channel 7 once when I was welcome over there. And I hung out with him, and I go, man, that's a nice picture. Do you want it? I said, man, I'd be honored. So I took that picture. And I have it on my wall. And then, as I said before, and look, not without revealing too much of my intimate details, not that anybody cares, when I get out of the shower, I look at another picture that was a framed plaque from the Boise Rescue Mission with myself, Larry, and Teresa Palgrim covering Miller's mission. I'm dressed up as a turkey. It would be nice to peace out and go get some caviar.
So they can play in their freaking garden, smoke their pot, drink their fancy wine, and eat their caviar like the liberals do.
But America is worth fighting for. The state is worth fighting for. And when we peace out and give the liberals the upper hand, they win. And look, Mark, I get all the bad news, but Fox is going to report the news, and that's their version of the news. And by the way, with all due respect to everybody, when they start talking about Dominion lawsuits and everything else, and I know Pat from Middleton is going to go liberal Kevin Miller, there were court cases, and they were denied. That was the system. Dominion won, what was it, almost $1 billion from Fox News? Because Fox News did not act responsibly. Every day, we put it on the line here because people are looking to get the gotcha. People are looking to, you crossed a line. Never mind, it's popular opinion. You can't say that anymore. Russell from Star talking about this. You have to be accountable. Newsmax, they're getting ready to get Dominion because you can't make these baseless allegations. Look, would I have loved to have seen the smoking gun? The evidence overturned? Look, we have how many people that went to jail and had their civil liberties taken away from them, which is totally wrong because of January 6th. If we erode our institutions, and my boy Lee Joe, I love Lee Joe. Lee Joe, if we can help you, if I can help you personally in any way with your business, please consider me a resource. My boy Lee Joe, who constantly goes after goes after the Ada County Sheriff's Office. He's holding them accountable. That's his right to do that. But during the pandemic, during the Ammon Bundy era, if you destroy and disrupt and decimate every societal institution, we don't have any left. And then what? I used to joke with Tom Munns, TomMunns.com, before Tom, pieced out, joined the Matrix, and got a job. And that's not a shot on Tom. I love Tom. But one time, the most famous Tom Munns video ever is he's speeding in Montana. And this is a guy that has a lovely family, a lovely wife, and was so committed to conservatism, he would pay his own way to go to these places to give speeches in front of 3 or 4 people. He literally would haul around a video cassette camera, edit the tapes himself, put them online at his own expense. I love people like Tom. There aren't people like Tom. And I can remember one time, this is the best video ever, where Tom saw a park ranger speeding through the national park. So what did Tom do? Tom, before they had dash cameras, put his VHS camera on the dashboard, literally, and started following behind. And then apparently the park ranger got nervous, and both females called a female, and they pulled Tom over. And he goes, well, I'm just following you. And then they went after him. He goes, I don't recognize your authority. Well, if we all do that, then we have chaos. And you have to trust in God. Because the devil wins when you give up. The devil wins when you give up. That's what he wants you to do, to peace out. Man, I see so many people year in and year out. There was a guy, his name was Terry. And I don't know if he passed or not, but he was in assisted living. And the people that run the Patriot Academy, Elizabeth, I believe, and her husband, they took care of Terry. And Terry, every flipping year, think about that. The other day, it was Constitutional Day, and we had who? Not the Attorney General. We had the Secretary of State in, Phil McGrain. And every year, Terry, who probably didn't have a lot of money, would dress up as Ben Franklin, and you had another guy dressing up as either Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett, take your pick, and another dude dress up, and they would have a proclamation, and they said, hey, you pudgy, pasty guy, come on out and speak to us. Terry could have done other things, but he didn't. He didn't give up. Do you think the folks at Valley Forge really wanted to be out there when they wanted to be back in their cabins to make sure their wives and kids were safe? But no, they were there. And that's what we face. Of course, people want you to give up. Of course, they want you to peace out and go do sports radio. And they win, because then it's just you buy an RV.
Go enjoy your beer and ride your ATV and watch sports. We'll run the country.
Yeah, think about that. Hey, if you didn't hear me talk about that last week, I really want to tell you again about an amazing low-payment lease deal at Team Mazda this month. That's right, our friends at Team Mazda, Aaron and Joel, the Mazda CX-50. It's a mid-size SUV. It's a fairly new model, and it's got Goldilocks, right? Not too big, not too small, but just right for hauling family, groceries, gear, and pets. It's also all-wheel drive, so, when we have those Greg Ferreira winter moments that are just around the corner. By the way, I was driving on, you people call it the freeway, I call it the highway, and the roads here are very interesting when they get wet, because you can get those puddles quickly, and there's nothing like going 70 or 80, going into the right turn on the connector there when you're getting ready for freedom to leave the city of Boise, and all of a sudden you're going, ooh, ooh. Well, that's not going to happen if you have all-wheel drive. Right now, you can get the Mazda CX-50 at Team Mazda for only $253 a month. $253 a month to lease a new Mazda CX-50, the Mazda CX-30. Now, it's a slightly smaller than the CX-50, but it's one of the highest-rated small SUVs on the market, and it's super fun to drive. The payment at Team Mazda on a CX-30, $202 a month. That's right. Tell them you heard it with Kevin Miller. Kevin Miller. Lease a brand new Mazda CX-30 only for $202 a month. Go see Aaron and Joel and test drive a Mazda this week. Those guys know how to help you drive a new Mazda at the lowest payment possible. Team Mazda, the pre-owned superstore on the Boulevard in Caldwell, or online anytime at goteammazda.com. We sure appreciate them. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. But like I said, nothing is over until we decide it is. Who's with me? Kevin Miller.
And the absence of trust that an abundance of people, not just black males, but an abundance of people in America have with Capitol Hill. And that's what I keep telling folks. I've been telling folks this for the longest time. Listen, when it comes to Donald Trump, he speaks a lot of folks' language. They don't care as much about the message. They care about how he's delivering the message because he delivers it in a way that they want to deliver it to Capitol Hill.
Part of sports is predicting who's going to win.
I still believe it's going to be Kamala Harris that's going to win this election.
Really?
I really do. I think she's going to win this election because I think that when you take away the fringes, folks on the fringe, on the extreme right and left, and you get to the center, I think ultimately people are going to look at her, regardless of what they're saying about her. They're going to look at her and say, you can work with her. And the way the streets of America was when he departed from office in 2020, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to relive that. And I think by that virtue is what is going to propel her to the presidency.
There we have it. Chris Wallace and Stephen A. Smith, the old and the new media, talking about election predictions that Kamala Harris is going to win. But look, then if that happens, it's just more of the same. More bad economies. I was talking to a friend of mine at the Albertsons yesterday, and we were going, yeah, the Fed lowered the rate. That's great. That's fun. That's exciting. But is that really going to help you with the cost of wine? Is that really going to help you with the cost of goods? No, of course not. It's going to, I mean, Joe Biden accelerated the inflation, accelerated the, lowered standard of living. It's going to take years to get that back. And as Congressman Fulcher said, if you missed it, you can get it on the podcast. As Congressman Fulcher said, hey, man, we've got to deal with this debt. We've got to deal with this debt. And I don't want to scare people in the stock market, but what happens with if all of a sudden we get a little Greg Ferreira, on our national debt? Do you think that's going to have an impact on the stock market? Of course it is. And it's been a great run. I mean, doubled since Joe Biden took office? But so is our debt. And you got to deal with the debt. Coming up next, Jeramiah Dickey, Kevin Miller. Mr. Dickey, thank you for joining us. It's okay, Bo. Sometimes they press the mute on their cell phones or something of that nature. Well,
Kevin?
Yes, sir. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Sorry.
No worries. The music plays, and, we're all starstruck being on the radio, so thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So let's talk about this weekend, the home opener, Portland State. You've been working diligently with the staff, with the team, with the community, with the university to really improve the experience. What can people expect this weekend, sir?
Yeah, well, many probably heard, the last few days, us testing our new sound system. That's the big item. Last year it was the video board. The year before was another video board, lights. Now we have a sound system to go with it, and it really ties it all in. Our sound system was extremely old and very much impacts fan and student athlete experience, and so really excited about that. You're going to hear more testing today in the downtown area, which is great, and hopefully it gets Bronco Nation excited. We also got a bunch of new menu items, signage, in terms of trying to cut down on lines, and obviously we have the second quarter club that we announced. I believe that information went out yesterday. So the goal every year is to continue to elevate and raise the bar. I don't want people to come to Albertson Stadium and it to be the same experience that they had the previous year. And when your team is doing as well as our team is, and you have a guy like Ashton Dinty, that's what Epic is to us. And I believe we're going to get there this year, and looking forward to Saturday.
A lot of people don't understand, and you've been in the business a long time. You've dedicated your life to improving athletics and universities. And when you have Ashton Dinty, a Heisman Trophy hopeful, there's a lot that goes into that. Not only his performance on the field, but in marketing and educating. That's a heavy lift.
It is. I mean, it's one with what our team is doing. But that's important to us. Part of our job is to pour into these kids and serve them. And I know Patrick Walsh and Chris Coots and Colby and our overall our graphics, C-Mitch, our video team, they are committed to creating the best possible experience for our student athletes. And you look at a guy like Ash, he's such a tremendous man off the field. It's easy to go to war with him and to do the work, because he does represent us at a very high level, and it's been amazing to see the traction he's gotten nationally, and he's deserving of it. I was at Texas when Ricky Williams was there, and that, having 9 touchdowns, and I believe Ricky Williams was the last person to do it. To see Ash do that, and behind that offensive line, and how it takes a team, and how those guys have locked arms, it's really cool to see.
And of course, when you got into athletics, it was all about the on-the-field product. But now, I mean, we have revenue departments, we have acquisitions departments, we have even some teams hiring general managers just to deal with the football team. What has that transition been like for both you and the fan, specifically in the last 5 years, sir?
It's been challenging to a certain extent. At the end of the day, I'm not sure it's any different than what I walked into 20 years ago. I think it's more public. My first position was in marketing, promotions, and sales. So we've always tried to monetize the operation to fund the department. And, now it looks different because, we can actually, pay student athletes, and with name, image, and likeness, and, and the collectives. And so, some areas are getting more specialized as we continue to grow and professionalize. And, I would say it's less the revenue generating space, because I feel like that's been there, for quite a while. It's more in your mental health and wellness, sports performance, sports science, the commitment and dedication to the student athletes. And once again, what's best for them, and us continuing to prepare them for life. Bronco Life is another good area. Those are the areas that you've seen just a tremendous amount of growth over the last 20 years. And, and I'm grateful. I mean, that is our why. We are here for these student athletes, and we want them to graduate. We want to prepare them for that next chapter in life. And, and it's always what's next for them.
Jeramiah Dickey joining us here on KIDO Talk Radio, athletic director at Boise State University, getting ready for the home opener against Portland State. Congratulations, 3 sellouts already. You've put yourself on the line in the recent years saying, we need sellouts, we need sellouts. 3 sellouts already, that's a good sign for the season.
It's a great sign. I don't, this may not be correct, but I was told yesterday, and they're running the numbers, but that was the fastest we've ever sold out our first 3 games. And, I know it's the fastest since I've been here, and that's a testament to our external pod and our infrastructure and what we set out to create, 3.5 years ago. And, but really Bronco Nation, I'm so proud of them, and, they're listening to what I'm saying, and I'm still not sure everyone fully embraces how important selling out games are for us. Perception of the program, our national brand. We're playing an FCS opponent this weekend, and we're not one to look past anyone. It's always 1-0. But not many teams sell out an FCS program. And that's a testament to Bronco Nation, this community, and them embracing it. We are the front porch of this state. We are the professional team of this state. And, and I think, there's a ton of value in terms of bringing that many people to the downtown space and the economic impact it has. And, it's not one-sided. This is a win-win for all. And I'm really grateful that we've been able to knock out the first 3, and we have 3 more to go. And we're not going to stop. It allows us to invest back into our department and specifically our staff and our student athletes, and in addition, the fan experience. And so, I'm really excited to see Portland State this weekend, and it's a night game, so new sound system and the lights and the video boards, and my hope is Bronco Nation is going to show up in full force and ready to kick our home season off.
What has always amazed me about Boise State before I lived here was doing the most with limited resources. I was looking at the old Pac-12 versus the new Pac-12, and you've got, the big brands, the traditional brands. USC, blah, 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 over $100 million in revenue. And then you have Boise State that, again, continues to grow the revenue, probably, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, around $50 million. That's a lot of money to make up in a world that's really driven on revenue. How do you guys do so much with, generating about $50 million in revenue compared to others that are twice that?
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, it goes back to 6 games, 6 sellouts, and why we are monetizing, and brought season tickets to all of our sport programs and creating pipelines and the infrastructure to support these, the 18 sport programs, 350 plus student athletes. It is challenging, but, I'm not one to back down from a challenge. And I know I have a team around me who's embraced that. A lot of times we overcomplicate things. Sometimes it's just doing the work. We have an unbelievable community, and there's been a lot of people that have moved into our community. There is money in the Treasure Valley, and I don't say that as because the relationship matters to me, and we've spent a lot of time building those relationships to align with those donors where they want to invest into and the impact they want to have. It's been a long time coming. I think we've had the people in place, maybe not the plan, and you plan the work, you work the plan. And we did that, and it started 3.5 years ago, and now you're seeing the fruits of our labor. When I got here, having, I think, 30 Lyle Smiths and now we're approaching 300. That's important to us. And when you're not necessarily funded as like maybe your peers, and maybe you're not in a massive media market, every dollar counts. And we've been able to stretch our dollars and invest strategically, into areas of our department that are going to to pay dividends in terms of our goals. And we're not going to stop, and we're going to continue to drive forward. And there's always a solution. Sometimes you just got to look harder and work that much more for it. And I have a team that's committed to that.
Well, someday maybe it will be somebody from The Athletic or Pete Thiele will break down the uber secret negotiations that allowed Boise State and 3 other schools to join the Pac-12. You were involved in that. Without revealing too much that you're not comfortable with, what was that process like from beginning to end?
It was a great learning experience for me. I've never gone through something like that. Obviously, I've gone through realignment with everyone else, but when you start having those type of conversations and then ultimately negotiations, it was a great experience. I was appreciative of locking arms with some of my colleagues. We call them the Mount West Four, me being one of them. Ultimately we all had the same goal in mind, and, the same aspirations and ambitions of what it could be. And, and I'm always going to bet on us. And, when you look at the opportunity and when it first started, it's like, all right, let's think through this and maybe not. I don't know. Like I'm always going to run out the ground balls and see if it's a value. And the more conversations we had and the more data that was presented, and you just every day it's like this could be really good for us. And then you get to last week, and I think I've said it before. I'm not sure on Monday, when I had a call with everyone that I felt like, yeah, we're going to announce this by Thursday. And it happened very quickly. And, sometimes that's best. We don't, I'm a ready aim fire guy. And I think, probably most athletic directors are. And as a leader, you have to make decisions, and there are no guarantees. And that creates some uncomfortableness. But, I said it about the revenue generation. I'm always going to bet on our team. I'm not smart enough, Kevin. Like, the college athletics, I don't feel is rocket science. It's do the work. And, and I'm going to always bet on my team, and everyone is doing the work. And you see what that announcement did. I mean, in terms of how it's impacting recruiting and our national storytelling and our brand and, revenue. We've just sold out the first 3 games, and I that was kind of the the straw that broke the camel's back on that. Like we were able to push forward, and we're close on the other three. We had some major donations come through last week. I believe 99.9%, because nothing's perfect. I believe Bronco Nation was all in, and I appreciate that. But that was one of 200 steps, and it's back to work, and we gotta obviously add a couple teams, and whatever. If that's we know we need to get 2 teams, but is it 2, 3, 4? I mean, that time will tell. That's to be determined. And but it's really cool to be a part of a process, and when you're creating a conference versus trying to undo what's always been done, which I define as insanity. And I would much rather be a part of creating something and betting on myself.
Well, and by the way, our great friend Jeramiah Dickey joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, talking Boise State athletics. It's unfortunate, and again, you worked in the MAC and other places, the Mid-American Conference, where people could drive. So I always say that people here in the Mountain West, in the West Coast, that it's a challenge. But I mean, what was it like going to that Oregon game where people could drive? And so you're going to have people being able to drive to Oregon State, Washington State, maybe a few others. That does mean a lot when you can, you have that caravan, you have that, the RVs come in. That really adds to the experience.
Yeah, I mean, and not just for Bronco Nation, which obviously is on my mind. The student athletes. I mean, you look at where we're pulling our recruits. You look at our alums, and you look at the students in general, the student population. To be, in Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado, and obviously Idaho, and we'll see who else gets added. That very much helps us in a number of ways. I always try to look at it, especially a major decision like this. How is it going to impact the academic mission of the university? We want to continue to grow. Enrollment is important. Athletics is the front porch. My hope is that this dominoes very positively towards academics as well, and I believe it will. That was top of mind. But you're absolutely right. I think in many ways we've lost our way in regards to what college athletics was intended to be and maybe what it's becoming. But that's the hand we've been dealt, and we're going to play it to the best of our ability. For us, if we can control some of that experience and create opportunities for our fans, and the different alumni bases. I mean, there are a lot of, I can't tell you how many Cougs came up to me at my kid's flag football game and thanked me, or, and I was just one of many people at that table, but thanked us for creating it and how they're going to get to connect with their team. That's college athletics. Like that's what I loved about this and why I got into it. Those alumni that very much care, and the rivalries that are formed, and you want it. Like next, when we play Washington State, and I don't want to look past Portland State, and obviously we got a game this weekend, but when we play Washington State, that it's going to be electric. But what's going to be really cool is to see, the interactions and during the week, because there's a lot of Cougs in town. And I think that's part of it, growing up in Texas and having Texas OU and Texas A&M and, all these different rivalries, office buildings would shut down. You wouldn't talk to your colleague, because it mattered. Ohio State, Michigan would be another one. Those rivalries matter. And I'm not trying to say like we're Ohio State, Michigan or whatever, but I do think that adds something to it. Athletics is important, and I'm really grateful to be a part of that process and ultimately how it's going to impact us into the future.
Two final questions for Jeramiah Dickey, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Who inspires you? Where did you get your leadership structure from?
I've had so many people pour into me over the course of time, and probably too many to mention, but Mac Rhodes at Baylor, Hunter Yurchek at Arkansas are two that rise that I was probably closest to. But I have some great donors that have become really good friends, and I hate even calling them donors because now they're my friend. And someone like Mark Miller, who's here and obviously very supportive of us, and Bob Bob Miller and, Steve Eddy. And I mean, these are guys that I probably talk to them more about the things that I'm challenged with and how do I approach it versus how they could actually help, because I respect them so much and appreciate them for how they've built their own businesses and how they approach their day. And, I can't say enough about people like that in my life. I'm not an outlier. I still, to this day, I'm still learning, and I have a lot of people who are helping me. And I'm grateful for them because, you're only as good as your teammates. And I say it a lot, it takes a team, and I have a lot of unbelievable teammates that help me.
And finally, unfiltered, uncensored, what would you like to say to people listening to you right now, sir, to get the message out? What can they do to support the program?
Continue to buy tickets. Obviously, first 3 games are sold out. We still got 3 more. That matters to us. And whether it's season tickets, a single game ticket, joining the Blue Collar Club, supporting the collective, we have so many opportunities, a buffet of opportunities that benefits our institution, our community, and our state, and more specifically our student athletes and the experience that they're having. Our job is to prepare them for life, and we need as much support as we possibly can get. And so every dollar matters. Every dollar counts. And, and I'm really grateful for how people have embraced, what we're doing and the why behind it. And if we can get, because ultimately once we get to 6 games in football, I'm going to pivot to basketball. What Leon and Gordy and what those 2 coaches are doing is amazing, and I'm really looking forward to basketball season. And so show up, make it a priority. I don't need people here 365 days a year. For football I need 6. And that makes an impact, and I'm grateful for those that have committed to the first 3 games.
Mr. Dickey, we appreciate your taking the time for us, and good luck to you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Go Broncos.
There we have it, our great friend Jeramiah Dickey talking about the big home game coming up this week. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Told me yesterday this was about the economy.
This is my 4th presidential election at the Fed, and it's always the same. We're always going into this meeting in particular and asking what's the right thing to do for the people we serve.
He's calling this a recalibration to protect a strong labor market. However, big cuts historically come during times of stress, like the day 50 basis point cut September 18th, 2007, because of the mortgage crisis.
And there we have it from our own Fox News reporter. Good morning, Kevin Miller in the morning. That was Edward Lawrence talking about the Fed cut. And really, we do appreciate the Boise State Athletic Director, Jeramiah Dickey, joining us. It's always good to see what's going on, the business of sports, if you will, because it means so much to the community, and we do spend, our dollars on that. And to get a behind the scenes of what it's like to run an institution. And as we talked about before, whether you read the Wall Street Journal or the Idaho Statesman or not, these programs are continuing to build more of an infrastructure, and the money is so big that actually they're hiring, like football teams have. They have a director of player personnel, they have a coach, they have a general manager. Now some teams at the big money level, they're actually hiring a general manager to balance everything, to make sure that because of the congressional decision, you're going to have universities that will be directly paying players soon. So we appreciate that. Obviously, keep it here for your chance to win tickets to Boise State versus Portland State. And getting back to the Fed interest rate, this impacts all of us. Look, I wrote an article on KIDOTalkRadio.com and on the KIDO Talk Radio app taking a look at this before it happened. And when I was saying this, I thought this could be good for Idaho home buyers and sellers. It's so funny because we get so spoiled, and we had such a tremendous run. Remember when interest rates for 15 years were at 2%, 2.5%? I remember, and this is the craziness of it all, I remember when I first got my home, my interest rate was 5%. And then people were going crazy when it went from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and now here's where it is. Well, homes are overvalued, especially in our state. We're number 2 to Montana, and remember, they don't have anything in Montana, really. Very nice people, but not a lot of them. And you have these homes that as Greg Ferrer likes to say, 5 years ago, you could get a home for X amount of dollars because the interest rate was so incredibly low. Now, was it artificially low? Perhaps. But you can't tell me that the Fed doesn't know what they're doing, that the Fed doesn't, let us know that the fix really is in. Oh, right before the election, I've had 4 elections. Well, what did you do for Donald Trump, buddy? What did you do for Donald Trump? Oh, that's right. You started raising the interest rates, which slowed the economy and everything else. Look, I'm not a smart guy, but I'll tell you this, that until we do something about our debt, our deficit, and everything else, we can talk about the Fed rate and everything else, but until we make a commitment to secure our future, not against climate change, not against the real-life threats of Iran, Russia, China, whoever else, insert your bad guy here, not until we take on our debt. It's like everywhere, man. It's so great to go to Amazon and buy money. It stinks when you have to pay for it, and then you have that revolving interest rate. And I hope that we get more Republicans in. Well, Kevin, they're all piles. I hate them all. Oh, okay, big baller. However, what's the alternative to spend us into oblivion, which is what the Democrats want to do? KIDO Talk Radio, let's get you to work safely in the time. Want to remind you once again, don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say stop freaking, call Beacon. KIDO Talk Radio traffic. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studio, working an accident eastbound coming out of Canyon County at Garrity. It's in the left-hand lanes. Move to the right-hand lanes. Westbound 84, just before the Curtis overpass, you have an accident off on the right-hand side. And at 10 Mile and Cherry Lane, a water main broke there. They are working on that intersection. Cut your power bill year-round with G&G Insulation and receive up to 30% of the cost in tax credits for insulation and air sealing materials. Call G&G Insulation or visit gndginsulation.com. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
Did not declare that the reported apparitions were authentic or of supernatural origin. In 1981, a small group of children reported seeing visions of the Madonna on a hill in the wine-making region. Others have claimed the visions have taken place regularly, with Mary sending them messages. Numerous healings have transformed the small village in southeastern Europe into a place of worship with prayer, seminars, spiritual retreats, and youth gatherings. The decision essentially overrules doubts about the veracity of the alleged apparitions by the region's past diocesan bishops. CJ Papa, Fox News.
Yeah, I think he's talking about in Medjugorje, which is in that area where they're talking about where you had 3 young people say that they have seen the Mother of Christ, the Virgin Mary, and that is a big one, if you will. I've met those 3 young ladies or 3 young people, but I think that was a tough one for CJ Papa because, quite frankly, when you heard that story, did you really come to a conclusion? But our conclusion is salvation by faith, salvation by works. And we're going to be saved from that segment by Paulie in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Going to be saved? That's laughable. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Paulie. Good morning to the listening audience.
They had was it the Medjugorje or where was it in France?
You had Medjugorje, Fatima, and a few other places.
Fatima, yeah.
Fatima.
Yeah, I remember those as a young man growing up in Catholicism. This whole thing about homes, and the $25,000 that Kamala wants to throw around for a house. By the time you put up the walls and the footings with the cement, you pretty much spent your $25,000 right there. That's not any walls around you or a roof on top of you. And I don't know what you could get for $25,000. Maybe an outback building somewhere without electricity or running water. The price of the homes they're so astronomical to me now. They reminded me of what had become where I grew up, and it was no longer affordable for me. And when I came to Idaho, and met this woman on a blind date and married her shortly thereafter. We decided to build a home, and we did. We built it from the ground up. We put some sweat equity into it, as most couples do, and it was $79,900 is what it cost for a 1,258 square foot home, brand new, in Meridian, Idaho. And now you can't even touch that house for under $175,000, I think. So,
well, I don't know about that. I'm thinking, what's the entry level to a home now? $250,000, $350,000?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not even looking because there's no way I can do it. I have the credit to be able to go along certain lines, but I just don't have the down payment, for that matter. And I'm not really looking. The best way for me to go is to rent, and when something breaks, I don't have to pay to fix it. You know what I'm saying? And there's kind of a method to one's madness in that, but also you're beholden to keep the place up too at the same time. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was the Reagan movie. Have you gone to see the Reagan movie yet?
No, I haven't.
Well, I highly recommend that you do that, Mr. Miller. Take your wife and go have a bucket of popcorn and a couple of gallons of soda and get all jacked up on caffeine and have a good time. And
then I'm going to have to, and without disclosing too much, then I'm going to have to go to the bathroom and miss half the movie.
I'll tell you what. Okay, don't do that then.
I have to dehydrate myself if I'm going to step. I'm going to be there for over an hour or two, man. I gotta load up on the sodium and all sorts of things. Come on, man. This isn't 96 anymore.
Yeah. Did I hear you referencing in one of your openings this morning one of the recordings you have of Kevin Bacon saying that everything is all right? It's all right.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Remain calm. All is well. All
is well. That's the one. Yeah. I still think one of my favorites is when Belushi is coming down the stairs and that guy's playing the guitar, trying to impress a date that he's not going to be able to impress. And he's singing the song, "I Gave My Love a Chicken." And Belushi raises his eyebrow to the camera and grabs the guitar out of his hand and smashes it into about 90. Oh, that was so funny. I could not help myself.
Animal House, not a family-friendly movie like Reagan. Paulie, thank you for the call.
Yeah, enjoy the movie, Kevin. I think your wife will too.
I will take that recommendation, sir. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You as well. 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
I got my man coming on right now. Stimulating talk. He knows how. Mayhem in the AM is his battle cry. He rebuked Obama. They said goodbye. He goes by the name of Miller K. 580 AM. He'll show you the way. 6 to 10, he's on the mic. Conservative talk, I guarantee you'll like. I said 1, 2, 3, 4. Miller K. What are you waiting for? Word.
Thank you, Idaho Ian. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So we were talking a little presidential politics earlier in the program. Here you have President Trump doing something that he hasn't really, that really no other presidential candidate has done. He essentially went to a bar. Did you see this on any of the social media feeds or television? He went to a bar. And then he actually hung out at the bar and did his own thing. And I don't think he had a beer because President Trump doesn't drink, but he was signing autographs, and it was the most surreal thing that I've ever seen involving politics, where you have President Trump at the bar having a good time.
Just moments ago, President Trump saying that he feels safe as he storms his old stomping grounds of New York City, where he's set to hold a big rally later tonight. But before that, he made one incredibly important pit stop, kicking back with the most handsome host to ever exist. Mr. P, how's your golf game?
Well, haven't been thinking about it too much lately. I always said golf is a very dangerous game.
It really is. It really is, especially if they're playing with you.
Yeah, it's true. That's
what? That was a mean joke.
Pretty sad.
Did you? If they had told you that the shooter was there, would you have tried to take him out with your 3-wood?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. If I knew. Actually, the Secret Service did a great job. They saw the barrel of a gun, big gun.
Yeah.
And it came out through bushes. And how many people would see that? First, he really was very exceptional to have done it.
And there we have it from Fox News' Greg Gutfeld. We'll have more of that interview coming up. And it does remain, and this is what Congressman Fulcher talked to a little bit about earlier, that, we need the full disclosure. We need to find out. We need to get in depth on what is wrong with the Secret Service. Apparently now there's a report, and again, we're going to be responsible in saying it's unsubstantiated. We're not going to go fly off the handle, but it's unsubstantiated that apparently they didn't do a pre-sweep. They just went in there and did their own thing and, let the buyer beware. And you're looking at yourself going, well, you don't have to be a Secret Service agent to understand that when you have something huge, something that is, of vital national security, the guy who is the front runner in the presidential race, the guy who's already been a victim of an assassination attempt. By the way, please, local and national media, it's not an alleged assassination attempt. The guy had an AK-47 or whatever other with a scope. He was going to try to take out the president. Thankfully, through the diligent work of Fox News on KIDO Talk Radio, Senator Josh Hawley continues to talk more and more about whistleblowers that are coming forward to him. Here's what he had to say to our own Jesse Waters last night.
We've heard, Jesse, from new whistleblowers who've come forward about this second assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. And here's what they have told us. That golf course that the president was playing, Secret Service have guarded that course many, many times. And what the whistleblower says is protocol calls for Secret Service to station agents along the places in the course that are known vulnerabilities. I want to emphasize the service has guarded this course many times. They know where there are vulnerabilities. They normally station agents there ahead of Trump's appearance on the course, but they apparently did not do that this last weekend. And the whistleblowers tell me that's strange. That's out of protocol. It's not even clear Secret Service swept the perimeter before Trump took to the course. Also a breach of protocol. And they want to know why, and so do I. I think the Secret Service deserves to give us answers.
Very good point from the Vigilant Fox from Fox with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. So do we live in such a world where we're just going to wipe it off and keep going? This is the most famous man on the planet. And you're saying to yourself, why in the world have we not had better protection for this guy? We can't just say, well, we don't have enough resources. This is a zero-sum game. The stakes can't be any higher.
We're hearing conflicting reports about who fired off those rounds at Ruth. Was it a guy sweeping the perimeter during the round, or was it the advance team who was a hole ahead? Do we have any understanding of what the truth is there?
I don't think we do yet. Certainly I don't. And again, the Secret Service, the FBI, DHS have not been forthcoming on this. Jesse, I want to emphasize we are over 2 months, of course, since Butler. Do you know that the Secret Service still has not given congressional investigators the documents and evidence we have been asking for 2 months? 2 months since Trump was shot in the face. Now he has been shot at, or nearly so, again, and still Secret Service is stonewalling right down to this hour. I mean, what is going on here? They need to level with us. They need to level with the American people, and they need to tell us what in the world is happening.
He's right, but if you have Joe Biden and the vice president stonewalling, are you really going to get any answers? Kevin Miller.
I just learned something yesterday, and, I had to do some research before, I was willing to bring it up. But have you ever heard of a group called A308?
No.
It's a group in Ukraine that fights in their army. And may I just bring up a little, connection here? The guy that had the SKS, not an AK, it was the SKS, that's a foreign-made weapon that was waiting for Trump, was recruiting for Ukraine. He actually, the media was all gaga and loved him and oh, he's so wonderful, he cares about Ukraine, and did all kinds of pieces about him. Well, this group that fights for Ukraine, A308, put it in Google, go on Wikipedia, look it up. They're neo-Nazis, Kevin. We are funding Nazis fighting Russians. Kevin, I got a question for you. Okay, I got to go back on my family line just a little bit. I'm German and Russian and French. I'm a mutt. I'm related to them all. Okay, related to Russian royalty, the ones that the bad Russians killed. That's how I know something about.
So you're related to the Tsar. When the Bolsheviks killed your ancestors, right? Yeah.
Right. The whole story about the girl and the big bad kind of Ouija guy that played dark magic that Disney loved. That's that's family. So I'm just let's go back to the John Browning, whose mother was a Clark that I'm related to. The 50 BMG Browning machine gun that he gave to our country. Who were we shooting at with that in World War II? Right. My uncle, I'm sorry. I'm bad. I'm a little frustrated. My grandpa's brother used to crawl down tunnels with a 1911 made by John Browning and a flashlight pushing people out of tunnels. He was so messed up after his service. My dad told me this. He didn't talk very much. In fact, he was a Mormon, Kevin, that was an alcoholic because he had post-traumatic stress so bad. I'm not talking bad about him. I'm telling you the realities of war. He would go down tunnels and engage the enemy. But that wasn't the worst thing he had to do. He was a guy with a flamethrower that roasted them as they came out the other side, and he would rather go down the tunnel with the 1911 and engage him that way than burn them alive with the flamethrower. And the left calls us Nazis. Kevin, you think I like Nazis?
No.
I've told you on your show, I killed Nazi dogs. I grew up across the Snake River, a guy that used to put a swastika up on his house because he was mad at my same grandpa that went to war, put a star up on his silo. Aiden Gunnarsson is his name. Everybody knows what I'm talking about in the Manan area. I killed that guy's dogs when they came after my dad's cattle. Okay, I know something about Nazis. So, all you Democrats that love Ukraine, that put their flag on, you don't even know what you're funding. A308 is a Nazi group, and they're fighting the Russians. Fighting them, fight them. So I have a question. Whose side are you on? You call us Nazis while you take our taxes, and Biden and Kamala and the new VP loves Ukraine too.
Sure.
Are you you're kidding me? Like, are you an American and you hate Nazis, but you're funding them to fight Russia? And I'm no fan of Russians.
I get it, Brian. Thank you for the call.
In fact, recently I was in Nevada. I'm in these streets, let me tell you, I'm everywhere.
There we have it, the vice president.
In fact, recently I was in Nevada. I'm in these streets. Let me tell you, I'm everywhere.
Why would anybody vote for that? Let's talk about it next. Plus, back to the Secret Service. Brian, appreciate the phone call. KIDO Talk Radio traffic. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studio, traffic on the freeway is still slow coming out of Candy County. We do have an accident at Idaho Center Boulevard and Franklin. Not sure if that's affecting some of the traffic there at the off-ramp, but it's running slow out of Candy County. And they're continuing to work on that water main break at 10 Mile just north of Cherry Lane. With the new multiplier games from the Idaho Lottery, every scratch is a chance to multiply your win from 2 times up to 20 times. More wins, more woos. That's your traffic now. I'm Dave Burnett on KIDO Talk Radio.
No, it's funny. Every time I hear woos, I think of, the guy that's so over right now, the retired wrestler, Ric Flair. But more this, more woos. Thank you, Dave, for that. And a couple other issues we're getting to. Let's get back to the Secret Service issue. And we appreciate Brian giving us the update on Ukraine. But here we have the Secret Service, another assassination attempt against Donald Trump. Donald Trump goes on Gutfeld on Fox News. He's having a good time, laughing about it. But really, that it's no laughing matter when you have police saying that it was not a long distance to just how close the president was when the would-be assassin was spotted by the United States Secret Service. And they didn't take him out. They shot at him. And this guy took off because he knew he better head for the hills. But where is the overwhelming force? Where is the competency here? When does it become acceptable for our highest government agency when it comes to protecting our most valued assets, our people, to sit there and cry and say that they don't have enough money, they're overstretched, they're overmatched? If you've been in the military, and I know there are a lot of people that haven't been in the military, or if you've ever worked for a authoritarian organization like the Secret Service, like the FBI, there's no whining. There's you do the mission. And if you don't do the mission, we're going to find someone to do the mission for you. And the lack of goodwill because they're not telling Congress what Congress needs to know. Once again, Senator Josh Hawley on KIDO Talk Radio.
Jesse, from new whistleblowers who've come forward about this second assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. And here's what they have told us. That golf course that the president was playing, Secret Service have guarded that course many, many times. And what the whistleblower says is protocol calls for Secret Service to station agents along the places in the course that are known vulnerabilities. I want to emphasize the service has guarded this course many times. They know where there are vulnerabilities. They normally station agents there ahead of Trump's appearance on the course, but they apparently did not do that this last weekend. And the whistleblowers tell me that's strange. That's out of protocol. It's not even clear Secret Service swept the perimeter before Trump took to the course. Also a breach of protocol. And they want to know why, and so do I. I think the Secret Service deserves to give us answers.
Since we pay their salaries, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in the United States Secret Service that have pride in what they do, that have pride in government service, that have pride in doing what needs to be done, that would want to give those lessons in accountability. Say what you want, the current director, at least he showed up. At least he tried to explain things, as opposed to the former director who her past experience was protecting the blue Doritos, the Cool Ranch Doritos at your favorite supermarket. There are limits to getting rid of meritocracy in America, and we're starting to see that again and again and again. Sadly, this is why we cannot give up. We have to keep rolling. More coming up next. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing on KIDO Talk Radio. When it's plumbing and you're freaking, call Beacon today. Fox News next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning. How are you?
Great to have you here. We're doing all right. And boy, you're always in the news.
Yes, I am. I don't always like it, though. the press is just not fair most of the time, and they have an agenda, and I think most people know that, and that's why most people have such low esteem of the press.
Well, and the real people do, and then you have some people that continue to believe the propaganda. So I know you can't comment on, ongoing legislation, but your thoughts on what's going to happen on the ballot in November. And again, you're a lot brighter than I am. You're the Attorney General. You'll say what you want to say. So your thoughts, sir.
I don't know. I think people are interested in knowing more about this issue. As I talked about in the courts, I think the group leading this case was misleading the public by calling it an open primary. I think it's clear that the Supreme Court said 3 times, not one time, but 3 times in their initial decision, and they repeated it again in their second decision, that open primaries is not what this initiative was doing. Somehow the judge in this case decided to disagree with the Supreme Court, I guess. I guess we can do that now and disagree with the Supreme Court. Even judges don't have to follow what the Supreme Court says. But it's interesting to see that the Supreme Court clearly stated that the system of voting that we had before 2012 was an open primary, and the system that this initiative is trying to introduce is different than the system that we had before 2012. So they continue to call it that. I think it's unfortunate, but now it's up to the voters to decide.
Well, and that's where we have the issue involving, political parties. It would seem to me that if you have, these open primaries, the ranked choice voting, then all of a sudden, why have political parties?
Well, and I think that's a different distinction. So the U.S. Supreme Court has said that you can have different types of primaries. You can have open primaries. They said you cannot force political parties to open their primaries, but they have also said that states can choose whatever kind of primaries they want. The issue in this case is that they're calling it an open primary, which is what we had before 2012, and that's not what this system is. This system is different. This is a top 4 or a jungle primary, which is something that California has, something that Alaska has, something that Maine has. But there's only a few states that have this kind of system. I think Louisiana has something a little bit similar to this. But this is not the typical open primary system that we had in 2012. But as you indicated, there's also the second issue, which most people didn't know that this system included also a ranked choice voting system. And the ranked choice voting system is something that only 2 states have. And one of the states, Alaska, it's been such a mess in Alaska that they're trying to get rid of it now. They're trying to figure out how to back away from the ranked choice voting because it's a very complicated, complex system. Voting should be easy. Voting should not be difficult for people to do. And understanding the ballot should be easy, should not be difficult for people. And that's what you have seen in polls, and I haven't seen one lately, but you have seen in polls that people do not really like the ranked choice voting system, even in Idaho. So I just think that's one of the reasons they keep calling it an open primary, because they don't want the public to know that this actually includes two different changes to the voting system.
Yeah, and that would totally upend how things are going, as we've seen in Alaska. When we take a look at laws that were passed, and again, whether it's school districts or the hospitals, your job is to enforce those laws. What's the latest concerning, some people are not happy with the legislature and the laws that have been in place to protect people?
Well, the latest is we just had a case from the federal district court just yesterday, I believe, or the day before,
where, as you know, the legislature passed a law saying that you could not use student IDs to vote in Idaho. The reason was pretty simple. Student IDs are difficult, are easy to get. You don't have to prove citizenship. You don't have to prove really that other than you're a student, you don't have to prove much other than that. And most people can get that, and they can be easily tampered. So the legislature did something which I thought was really wise. They said, no, you can no longer use student IDs. However, in order to allow students of small means to participate in the process, they said, we will give you free state IDs if you cannot afford them, which was, I thought, a good compromise by the legislature. So now both the state Supreme Court and a federal district court have said that there was nothing illegal or unconstitutional about that statute, and we have been able to be successful in the courts defending what I think is an important election integrity step that the legislature took.
Mm-hmm. Well, Attorney General Raul Labrador joining us. It seems to be that it's all connected with attacks or probes on how we vote.
It is. I mean, elections are important. And, you know what, one of the things that I have found ironic about this whole process is that, you know, with the open primaries issue and now with this, the type of IDs that you use, my job as Attorney General is to defend the 1.9 million plus citizens of the state of Idaho. It's not to defend one small interest group that is trying to change our elections or one small interest group that is trying to fight the laws that are duly passed by the legislature. My job is to protect all the citizens. My job is to protect the election integrity of our system. My job is to defend the integrity of the initiative process. You know, if people think that they can get away with deceiving the public so they can get initiatives on the ballot, you're going to see groups from outside of the state spend millions and millions of dollars to pass things that they know they can't pass through the legislature, and they're only going to be able to pass it if they put it on an initiative. And then they spend millions of dollars. You know, if you look at this initiative, a lot of the money's coming from outside of the state. Why do outside of the state people have so much interest in the election process in Idaho? And I think every Idaho citizen should be fully aware of that there's a lot of money coming from out of state to change our electoral process here in Idaho. And I'm always going to stand up for the almost 2 million people in the state of Idaho and make sure that we have election integrity and we have an initiative process and an electoral process that can be trusted.
Well, and I think that's really where the rubber hits the road when we have all these issues and all these initiatives where you have people that can't get anything through the legislature, so they're going to have these propositions come up, and we're going to see more and more challenges to how the government is run. Are you obviously you're uncomfortable with all this outside money coming into Idaho?
Well, the question is why? Why is it coming into Idaho? You know, there's always outside money coming into Idaho, but what are they trying to change? What are they trying to introduce? What are they trying to propose? And again, if you look at what happened in Alaska, and you look what's happened in other states, that most states and most counties and most jurisdictions that have looked at ranked choice voting, after a while they move away from it. And most of it is because it's confusing. You know, ironically, if you look at some states, it's the Democrats who are opposed to ranked choice voting. And the reason that they claim that they're opposed to it is because it makes it more difficult, that the ballot becomes more difficult to understand. And for English language learners, for, the NAACP has come out against ranked choice voting because they think it makes elections more confusing. I mean, there's all these groups. It's not just, in Idaho, all you see from the media is that the right wing is against ranked choice voting. But the reality is that nationally, all sorts of groups are against it because they feel that it is very, very confusing and can lead to votes being cast that are not counted, can lead to all sorts of different things that can happen that are very difficult for the public to understand. So the Idaho media is always looking for the boogeyman, right? And the boogeyman is always the right wing in the state of Idaho. But the reality is that nationally, people that have looked at this ranked choice voting system, they find it confusing. They find it less helpful. They find that some votes, in some elections, up to 10% of the votes cast end up not counting in the final round of the election. I mean, think about that. We would be outraged if the Secretary of State or a county election official discarded 10% of the ballots in an election. Well, that happens through through ranked choice voting in some instances, where people who cast the vote, if they don't vote, if their preferred candidate, if they choose to only vote for one person and that person gets eliminated, they no longer are participating in the process. So there's just different issues that are very difficult for people to understand about this. And there's a reason why there's only 2 states that have done this. And I don't think Idaho should be the third.
A final question for the Attorney General, Raul Labrador. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. You have been on the forefront of sovereignty in this country for quite some time when we're talking about legal versus illegal immigration. You work with attorney generals from throughout the country to make sure that our borders are secure, that laws are in place. We hear these stories everywhere. Obviously, people in Idaho are very concerned about illegals coming in here. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's why it's so important who is in the White House. If you remember what this Biden administration did on day one is that they undid most of the work that the Trump administration was doing with regard to illegal immigration. The Trump administration had actually gotten illegal immigration to one of the lowest points in our history. They had told all the groups out there that they were going to arrest people, they were going to kick them out of the country, they were going to follow the law. Because it's simple. All they have to do is they have to follow the law. On day one, the Biden administration said that they were not going to follow the law anymore. They were not going to enforce the immigration laws of the states. And guess what happened? Surprisingly, right? There was a rush to the border, and we had a high number of illegal immigrants coming into the United States. I think most Republicans like myself are for a legal immigration system. I believe that we should have a system that makes sense. But the reality is that if you don't enforce the laws that are in the books, what you're going to have is people are going to abuse the system. And that's what's happening right now. And just yesterday, the Fed decided to lower the rates, and everybody was clamoring that that's such a good thing that the Fed decided to lower the rates. But in the question and answer period, the chairman of the Fed said, one of the reasons that we have to lower the rate is because the unemployment rate continues to rise because of the run to the border. All the people that have come into the United States illegally is actually creating an unemployment crisis in the United States. So there's so many issues that happen because of illegal immigration. A country cannot keep itself sovereign and cannot keep itself steady if it doesn't regulate who comes in and why they come in. And I think that's why it's so important who is in the White House and whether they're enforcing the laws or not.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, sir?
No, it's always great to be on your show. Just thank you to the people of Idaho and for their tremendous support, and I'm going to keep fighting for them.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you.
There we have it. Attorney General Raul Labrador, Kevin Miller. We'd love to get your reaction next. KIDO Talk Radio. Story on our website, the vandalism of the state Republican Party signs, where they're saying don't Californicate Idaho, where they're having signs on all places all over town, and people have decided to destroy them. And it shows you the bully tactics of the left. It shows you the bully tactics of people that want to strike down expression, just like Kamala, just like Joe. If we had our friend Peter Thiele on earlier today, and he said, welcome to totalitarianism. Now, you could say that this forum is full of hype and hyperbole, but really, why are people ripping down signs? Why are people doing these sorts of things? And if you missed the Attorney General, if you missed the Boise State Athletic Director, Jeramiah Dickey, if you missed political insider Peter Thiele or Congressman Russ Fulcher, huge podcast today that will be popping out probably around 11 o'clock at the very latest. If you're a member of the Yap Yap Club, you will get that notification. But think about this. Here we have this ranked choice voting coming in. And here we have everybody saying, well, something, it's good, it's fun, it's exciting. But where did they get the money for this? Where did they get the money to pay people to stand outside the DMV? To me, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. And once again, it will be a test of, do people really just pay attention to online ads or radio ads or television ads, or do they rely on their critical thinking skills, the same critical thinking skills that made America the great country that it is today? To the Yap Yap Clubbers, nice to have an AG who works for the people's interest and not themselves. Thank you for bringing him on, Kevin, Mike, and Caldwell. Hey, Kevin, what were the deficits under Trump? Not as much as they were under Joe Biden, A. Bundy. Do we give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? I don't think so. We manned up and shoved those despicable liberals back in the tank, right where they belong, Denver in Nampa. Seeing the attempts on President Trump reminds me of two attempts on Gerald Ford in 1975 by Squeaky Fromm and Sarah Jane Moore. Those attempts were within a month. Mike and Caldwell. The legislature can choose not to fund Prop 1 if it passes, DJ in Meridian. Yes, will we have the legislature pulling the sorry, we're going to peace out, sorry, we're not going to recognize this law, as they did, years ago when you had term limits. If you go back to Idaho history, or if you're Hank in Boise, what do you know? We passed term limits, the state did, and then the legislature said, not so fast, my friend. We're not going to recognize that as well. So we have a lot to talk about. 580-5436. 580-KIDO, the vice president trying to do the bob and weave. In other words, not to engage, because when she engages, it's not good for her.
When you listen to Kamala Harris on what she will do, you can almost start a drinking game every time she says small businesses. Let me give you an example.
Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, small businesses only get a tax deduction of $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So well, really, based on that, how many small businesses has she started? How many small businesses has she started? How many businesses has she started? Has she always worked in the public sector? Expanding that to $50,000. Understanding, again, that when people have the opportunity to have the resources to get started, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it.
Describe the politics of that.
When she says that, she also talks about being a middle-class kid. That's also at the front of her answers. If you look at the interviews they've been doing with local media, and they've opened up a bit more since the debate, the first question is often, what are you going to do to lower prices? Which is a very hard question for an incumbent party to answer. And it has implications that are very Trumpian. It is, Trump says he's going to do mass deportation. That'll decrease demand. Trump says he'll explore more energy. That'll decrease energy costs. Democrats can point to the fact that inflation is actually, it was bad 2 years ago. It's not now. What people want to hear is, how do you make the prices go down? So everything she says is something realistic that could survive a fact check that answers a very hard question. There is not a plan to say that we're going to lower the cost of your grocery bill to what it was in 2019. There was a pandemic. There was a money supply inflation. You can't hit the button that makes that go away. But Trump has an answer that gets him through these questions. And Harris, I think, with a different set of incentives and a different relationship to something she can back up in a policy paper, she doesn't have an answer. So she goes to a larger, well, imagine a future where there are more businesses and this starts to ameliorate.
Right. when you listen to Kamala Harris, you could almost start a drinking game. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. Stop freaking, call Beacon, beaconplumbing.net.
Shalom, the star.
So you called earlier from the cardiac rehab waiting room, then you had to go in, and now you're out?
Well, I had to go in and sign my life away and then come back out again.
All right.
And now I'm outside waiting because they said the nurse was running late. So now I got 10 minutes to talk to Kevin Miller, my man of the hour. I can't believe that nobody's talking about the elephant in the room. Nobody.
That's why we have you.
How many individuals did we just have blow up from Stephen King's book, Cell? E-E-L-L. Pagers and cells exploding, and nobody's talking about it? Nobody's talking how do they do it? It could happen to any of us anywhere.
We did talk about it earlier with Congressman Fulcher.
Yeah, I know. I listened to Fulcher, but he didn't know nothing. He never knows anything other than he can tell you all about real estate.
Well, what can you tell us about since you know everything?
I can tell you if the deep state can do that, just think what else they can do.
What they can do to you.
I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, you boob tube watchers that watch that boob tube from morning till night, there's a little camera in there, and they're watching you, and they're listening to you, and we're putting everything together. That's how we know Kamala is going to win by a landslide. And with this time last year, Kevin Miller was huffing his chest and saying, Trump's going to be president again. You and Terry and Bobby and all your buddies, Eric, and even Lucille. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, whammo, his feet get knocked right out from underneath him. And Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Kamala, president, 2025.
What are you going to do when the president is back?
What am I going to do?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Are you talking about Kamala?
What are you going to do when we're back and you're out?
You're not going to be back.
Oh yeah, we're back.
Oh yeah. Put some money where your mouth is, boy. You can't.
Okay, Daddy.
You're gonna use the excuse. Well, can't bet on political things.
Look, when you come to town, let's bet a meal on it.
Okay, you're on.
All right.
You're on. I'll have a plate full of hot wings, please.
That your cardiologist will really love that.
Oh no! I'm not supposed to go near that stuff.
Right. I don't want to be responsible for you seizing up or for me even seizing up these days.
First thing I mic'd up at 3:30 this morning, about 3 hot wings, a hard-boiled egg, cauliflower. Mm-hmm.
So you have your new, wait a minute, you have your new veins, so you're all set to go back to the old whatchamacallits.
You're darn tootin'.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what's really helping me get through all of this? Cannabis. If it wasn't for cannabis, I'll tell you what, I've turned everybody onto it here in rehab, turned everybody onto it in the ICU up there. You know, all the people are in there suffering and everything. Oh, man. It's going to be beautiful. Beautiful. Come to Arizona if you want to live in a free and open America. If Idaho was free and open, an adult could go down just like he could go down and pop a beer and drink it. He could go down and smoke or eat a gummy. So when Idaho wants to grow up and quit treating everybody like they're... That hurt.
Well,
that really hurt.
Well, we had to stop you. You were just running wild.
Were Eric on the Gong Show once?
You were on the Gong Show?
Was Eric and Brian and Terry and all them, weren't they all on the Gong Show once?
Well, you were on the Gong Show, the unknown comic.
Oh, I thought Terry was on there. He had his whatever clarinet and trying to hypnotize that cobra or whatever it was.
Thank you for the call. More of your calls next. Kevin Miller. Now, hello, TPB.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Good show. Thank you very much. Thanks for having Raul Labrador on. People need to know more about this ranked choice voting. And it's good to hear that the pothead of Arizona is feeling better. Yesterday, we saw the Fed cut interest rates by 50 basis points, which will do little to ease the current problems we have. And it is just one more sign that we are in a recession. The fact that unemployment in the U.S. of U.S. citizens is continuing to decline, as we saw in the drop of 1.2 million revision in labor statistics for new jobs just recently. And much of our unemployment problem can be blamed on the Biden administration, as illegals are taking more of the available jobs of U.S. citizens. The other problem we have is credit card debt is higher and basically highest in our history, and 10% of those with this debt are behind in their payment. So housing is out of reach for most Americans, as the cost of a home has risen to levels that make it owning a home almost impossible for the average family. And by the way, Kamala's $25,000 grant for new home buyers will do nothing more than raise the price by housing by another $25,000. So if you want to make housing more affordable, we need to bring down the cost of building new homes. And that will only happen if we can bring down the cost of materials to build a new home. The only way to do that, of course, is to cut the price of energy in half. And that will only happen if Trump is elected. You know, the core cause of inflation was instigated by the rise in petroleum products, because petroleum chemicals derived from oil and natural gas are used in the manufacture of over 6,000 everyday products and high-tech devices. You want to bring down the cost of living, then we need to drill, baby, drill, just like Trump has said. You know, the drop in interest rates will do little or nothing to boost the economy. And my biggest worry is that the dollar will, at some time, in the not-too-distant future, no longer be the world currency. The only thing that will be worth anything will be hard assets like gold, silver, and real estate. You know, if Kamala gets elected, you can say goodbye to any future prosperity and the middle class in general. I found it interesting that yesterday I went to pick up our mail and found a glossy advertisement for ranked choice voting addressed to my wife, who happens to be of the liberal persuasion, but none for me. So it is clear they are going after the votes of the Democrats and the independents, saying that the independents are blocked from voting in the primaries. And at the top, it states voters can restore Idaho's voting traditions with Propositions 1, giving 275,000 independents a vote. I also found it interesting that the treasurer of the Open Primaries campaign is none other than our old buddy Bruce Newcomb. This dyed-in-the-wool liberal is the same guy who stood up in the Lincoln Auditorium during a hearing on Second Amendment on campus carry and said, we should have an ever-changing Constitution. This man is an idiot. The people pushing for ranked choice voting are the same people who are responsible for changing and turning the Treasure Valley into a blue sea. If you want Idaho to become the next Colorado, vote yes. If you want to stop the blue word, vote no. It's as simple as that.
It sounds like you're mad that you weren't on the mailing list.
Yeah, I'm really upset about that.
Well, like I said, it really comes down to, you know, who you believe and whether or not you're going to get the word out and all sorts of things.
Well, they're spending a lot of money. I mean, this flyer here, this is an expensive flyer, I will tell you that. They're sparing no cost on trying to get this approved. And if the people of Idaho are foolish enough to fall for it, well, so be it. They deserve what they get. But people need to understand that you don't just go to the polls and pick and choose when you get there. You need to do some homework before you go and vote. Voting is a privilege. And if you don't want to keep this country the way it is, or this state in a conservative venue, then just don't listen to anybody and go in there and go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, like too many people do.
Well, it is the drama that will play out. Can money buy you the votes?
Oh, I'm sure it can in many cases. We have so many low information voters nowadays that it's hard to even guess at what's going to happen here. Keep in mind, as I have said before, social media is playing a big part in what's going to happen in this election. And when you have most Americans spending 1.4 hours every day on social media, this is the way they get their information. And you know that most of it is tainted. Sometimes I have to go into Google and go through 10 or 15 pages to look and find for the information I want, because they bury it. They bury it so deep you can't even find it anymore. I can't wait for Musk to come out with a new program and a new search engine, because what we have now is worthless to me.
All right, Tea Party Bob, thank you for the call.
Thank you, my friend.
580-5436-580-KIDO. The battle concerning ranked choice voting continues. You can go to our website, a great story there concerning, well, signs getting ripped up. People are upset about that. They're very angry. We'd love to get your calls on it. 580-5436-580-KIDO. We see this all the time in political campaigns where you have, and you talk to people that, whether they're at, big levels or small levels or any type of levels, what do you see? You see people ripping down signs and all sorts of things. Now, it's funny to me because the people that are in favor of ranked choice voting, and that's what this is, they accuse the current crop of Republicans, the current crop of people that are about faith, family, and freedom, of being too mean. So how mean can it be when you're tearing down signs? And, don't California-cate Idaho's elections. Vote no on Prop 1, ranked choice voting. It would be nice if we could have the arena of ideas, as we do here. Now, occasionally, Liberal Steve gets a little crazy, so we give him the bong or the gong, whichever you prefer. And, we have our debates and our dialogue. You think about people put up signs, and not just what's happening with the Don't Californicate signs. By the way, again, that story on our website. But you take a look at when people put up their signs and people come by and rip them off and tear them up and all sorts of things. Is that, to quote unquote, the Idaho way? Now, some news organizations have done stories on them. Some news organizations have taken a look at that. Some organizations have decided to cover that issue. And good for them. But we should be better than this. We should be able to have those ideas and have people have signs out. It's just kind of crazy when you think about signs getting ripped down and all sorts of things. Anyway, that is one of our local issues. Nationally, of course, the Fed lowered the interest rates. Now they're going to think that it's going to be wonderful. And we're going to be able to buy homes again. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if we're going to look at this and we're going to say to ourselves at 580-5436-580-KIDO that we're ever going to get back to home ownership. Now, let me put it to you this way, and let's spell it out for you. Owning a home, is that a right or a privilege? Owning a home, is that a right or a privilege? When you put money down and you go through the wonderful process of getting approved and pre-approved and all the wonderful, rituals that you go through. In America, there were a couple of traditions. The tradition was that your parents and your parents' parents, they always wanted you to do better than their generation. And that is truly the American dream. And years ago, during the pandemic, and in Idaho especially, it was much more affordable to rent because Idaho had maybe 1.2, maybe 1.3 million people. And people were still recovering. I think and please correct me if I'm wrong here, the various crashes in the state of Idaho when we're talking about housing. You had an initial bump, at least in the modern era, in the last 30 years, in 04, 05, right? Where people were building, and then boom, it was the dot-com bust. Obviously, the Great Recession, and then we have been on hyperdrive, pretty much like the stock market afterwards, where people have come in and they're trying to buy homes. And you have people that have lived in other places with bigger homes, more expensive homes, and to avoid the capital gains, they come in and they buy their McMansions. They've worked very hard. They have great pensions. Some people double, triple dip. I can't blame them for that. They made the right choices in life. Everything is a trade-off. And they're living a good life. And then you look at the young people between, 25 and 45. And unless you're going to live like you live in Hawaii, and if you've ever been to Hawaii, everybody there has 3 jobs. Everybody there, that's just the way it is, just because that's their standard of living. Hopefully that won't happen here. But unless you're going to work one job, then do part-time somewhere else, and then drive Uber, schmoober, here's a snack, there's a snack, everybody snack, you're never going to get a house. Now, Kamala Harris says that the government should ensure that you get a house. The government should give you money. Well, what happens when the government gives you money when everything rises to an artificial level? Well, then the cost of housing goes up. Tax breaks, it seems to work for electric vehicles. Why not for homes? And have we come to a point in America today, have we come to a point in Idaho today at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, where it's just about, I got mines, sorry if you ain't got yours? Pro-Life joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, talking about taking signs down or destroying signs. When was the last time that we had a big bunch of signs torn down and damaged? And it was Ammon Bundy. People, the establishment or whoever you'd call them, but the opponents of Ammon Bundy destroyed a bunch of his signs. And it seems like the liberals are destroying the conservative signs. It isn't the other way around. You don't hear the Christian conservative people going out and destroying signs. It's the people that want to keep the establishment in power. So that's... And then I got another thing to say. If you're a Democrat, you can't be a Christian. It's an impossibility. Because the Democrats believe in baby murder. That's totally unchristian. LGBTQ, sexual perversion, that's not Christian. Socialism is a collective theft. So you're a thief, too. And they just lie all over the place. So I just can't see that... somebody can say that they're a Christian and a Democrat. So I'm just hoping that people will catch on to that we have to go back to Christ. We have to go back to the commandments, the Bible, and foundational Christianity, or we're not going to get out of this. And Trump needs to shape up himself. I mean, he's allowing transgenderism and homosexuality in the military, and he was the commander-in-chief, so we got a long ways to go. So anyway, we're hoping that I'm hoping that the ranked choice voting doesn't pass, and I'll tell you why. Because that system of choosing 4 people and then averaging them, out, you get an average candidate. You don't get somebody you really want. The most average person that doesn't offend people, that's the person that's going to win. And that's a real stupid idea, just to have an average candidate, in the middle somewhere. So that somebody's ideas don't really mean anything. It's the guy that doesn't offend somebody, and that's actually what that system does. So anyway,
yeah, but society has changed.
yeah.
I mean, really, society has changed where you can't say things anymore.
Well, you can, but you get in trouble.
You do.
Yeah, look at, I'm always in big trouble.
You are, and then you get me in big trouble.
Yeah, but who cares? I mean, I don't care.
I know you don't
I'm
care.
in big-
You have nothing to lose, but I do. Pro-life, thank you for the call. Appreciate that. Always love pro-life. Always love to hear what people have to say. Phone number's here, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Even Senator Blumenthal is mad at the Secret Service for stonewalling on what's the deal? Why are you having all these assassination attempts against the former president?
I am reaching the point of total outrage because the response from the Department of Homeland Security has been totally lacking. In fact, I think it's tantamount to stonewalling in many respects. If necessary, I'll certainly support a subpoena.
Yeah, these guys don't like each other. Blumenthal does not like President Trump. President Trump is not a big fan of Blumenthal. He's ripped him again and again and again. And yet, thankfully, we have some bipartisan sanity. You know, there is a crisis going on. And, you know, it's like wherever you are. And it's let's go seasonal. You big fan of the tire sensor? You like the tire sensor in your car? Nobody likes the tire sensor in our car. And I don't understand this. Tires aren't cheap. Tires are not cheap at all. So we've had like triple digit days, and then all of a sudden it gets to the 40s or 50s. And each one of my cars we like to call paid off, my tire sensors come up. Now, I am so crazy about tire sensors, I actually replaced all the tire sensors in my car because it's almost 20 years old and I never want to have a flat tire. So I go into Les Schwab, and because I'm helpless, and I go, hey, man, I know it can't be the tire sensors because I had them replaced. And he goes, nope, cold weather. I go, have you been getting a lot of people doing this? Yes. 10 pounds in each tire, happens every year. Now, I could go on and on about a tire diatribe, but the fact is, at least when there's an action, you have to solve the problem. But what happens when we don't have a corrective course of action? What happens if we just go, well, I'm going to hope in one hand and I have something in the other? Does that ever work out? No, it doesn't. We have an entire system that is built on, a house of cards. And yet here, when people say, I don't like Republicans, when people say the Republicans have sold out, you don't hear or see the Republicans wanting to do this.
This country is staring down a full-blown housing crisis, a crisis where affordable housing is slipping further out of reach, where nonprofit housing is scarce, and where Wall Street and corporate America's greed is perpetuating our despair. More than half of American renters are spending more than 30% of their income on rent, more than ever before in U.S. history. We need to put homes back in the hands of the people and reclaim the home as a basic human right, not a commodity for profit first.
Well, I think she's taking a shot at us. I think she's taking a big shot at Idaho. People have made a lot of money in Idaho by selling their homes. It's the free market versus socialism. We can't afford $30 billion. And by the way, with all due respect, and again, we've all had issues where we've needed help in our lives, whether it's come from our family, whether it's come from the government, whether it's come from friends, whether it's come from investors, whether it's come from whomever. Show me a person that has never had the need for help in their lives, and I'm going to go, there's a person that lacks empathy and compassion. Show me a person like that, and I'm going to show you a person that is not very realistic. However, show me a government housing program that has actually worked. And maybe there are some. But you have the reputation of government housing where some people, they don't appreciate the free stuff. That's one of the reasons why I always had a problem with the Hope scholarships from the lottery, not in this state, but in others, where one of the way that they would get you to sign up for the lottery or some other gambling would say, well, we're going to give you Hope scholarships. Georgia was big on that. And you know how it is when you, and Dave Ramsey talks about this all the time. If you get something with your credit card, it's not the same thing as doling out the cash. It's not the same thing as removing something and giving it to that stranger. It's painless. It's a zip. It's a zap. And are we going to turn our most prized possession for most of us, our homes, into a government-funded social program? So if you get government funding, does that mean you can't sell your home at a profit? That's what they want to do, take over our lives. That's why you moved to Idaho, to have local control. Don't forget our friends Clay and Buck coming up today, followed by Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Glenn Beck, and of course, as always, you can keep up to date with us anytime online, KIDOTalkRadio.com, the KIDO Talk Radio app, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Did I cover everything, Sweet William? What's that? A thank you. Thank you to all. May God bless you. Keep the faith. Remember, good old Kevin Miller loves you. Have a great day.